Permashelf is a bit of a strange concept, isn't it? It's a weird word. It's a word that we came up with a few years ago to talk about those kind of whiskies that might actually give us anxiety at the point of diminishing quantities in the bottle. That being, you get down to something like this in the bottom of the bottle, and immediately you know you want to head out and replace it. You want to have another bottle there. You want to keep it on your shelf permanently, a Permashelf bottle. And I've done it since 2022. We did one in 2022 and we did one again last year. And I was kind of going through the list again with the idea that I would do it every 2 years. And I looked at the list, I looked at 2022 and I said, this is wrong. I am volatile, I am moody, I am sometimes making these lists, and what it's actually doing is betraying what I'm thinking about at that point of time. When what I should have been doing in 2022 and 2024 is thinking about the Permashelf. So it's wholesale changes tonight. You can hold me to account. It's going to be interesting to see what you think of it, but I'm looking forward to it as always. And I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Thursday night. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to a topic that we've done a couple of times before, but I'm about to turn on its head tonight and kind of change a lot of the things, a lot of the bottles on the Permashelf, certainly. More than half of them have changed. And I'm going to change the way that I've been, presenting the Permashelf concept to you tonight, because I realized what I originally intended it to be. And through the challenges, the difficulty of picking those bottles and only those bottles, remember it's a shelf that's limited by capacity. It can only hold 10 bottles. By going through that process and realizing how difficult it was to choose 10 whiskies, I ended up crowbarring in a few things for the sake of inclusiveness, variety, an eye on budget, an eye on availability, an eye on what was being discussed maybe at that point in time. That's a departure from my original concept of what the Permashelf was supposed to be, and indeed what a Permashelf bottle was supposed to be. So I think we're going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to hash it out. I'm going to share with you what was probably within one or two bottles my original pick when I started to pick for this year's session, for this session tonight. And it's been chopped and changed and chopped and changed, and I keep going back to the original question, and it makes me change it back again. So that's what we're going to share with you tonight. 10 bottles. I won't be drinking 10 drams. I've got 5 empty glasses. I've got 4 empty glasses in front of me and one has something in the glass right now. 5 drams tonight. That's what I'm going to be having. We'll go along with the rule tonight not to pour anything into a dirty glass. And that'll keep me on 5 drams to share with you tonight. I'm looking forward to it as always. Before we get into all of that, let's do what we always do, jump into the chat and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. How you all doing? Cheers. If you're trying to get hold of my attention, as always, type Aquaviti or at Aquaviti. Remember the spelling with the V instead of the U. And it pops up orange for me in the YouTube chat. That's what I'm communicating with. By the way, all the folk that tune in on Facebook, I see you. Thank you so much. But the chat that I'm interacting with live here tonight, the chat with all the channel-themed emojis from the barflies and everything, that's all happening in YouTube just now. So welcome, everyone. How you all doing? Pete Ed is saying, evening, Permaroy. Good to have you as our barman as always. Thank you, Frank. Good to have you as one of the dedicated barflies and weekly patrons. It's nice to have you. One of the channel elders, is that me being rude? Dorpass Whiskey Tim, also the same. Hi, Roy and everyone. You've been here from almost the beginning, Tim. In fact, I would probably suggest maybe the beginning. And it's great to welcome you in again alongside Gav's Drams and Highland Hamish saying, greetings from Inverness. No dram in hand tonight for the show. Early start, 6:30 train in the morning for a weekend of missionary work in inverted commas in Manchester. I'm going to suggest that you're down there spreading the word of the whiskey. Good for you, buddy. Good to see you in, Hamish. Big jump in the chat. Sorry, I'll scroll back up a wee bit. A grain of malt. That's James from Sweden. Good to see you, buddy. Hello, Aquavite. Moody, volatile. Are you describing me? Yeah. Let's not go. Maybe volatile and moody. Maybe they're extreme words. But when it comes to whiskey and our decisions about whiskey and our views and our opinions about whiskey, I think it's important to always keep the ability to be a bit fickle and promiscuous and change our minds and really not just about the whiskey that we're drinking, but the way that we think about the whiskey, the way that we talk about the whiskey. And just because I'm here behind the bar at the vPub every week, I don't think it would be fair to anyone, certainly not myself, if I tried to be consistent with my words today as I was maybe back when the vPub started in 2017, right? That would be weird because everything else changes. And with something as kind of a sensory experience, an emotional experience like whiskey, it changes all the time as well. And it's nice to embrace that change. Sid Martin celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 59 months. Oops, and my chat's jumped again, sorry. And he's saying, evening, Roy, and all the barflies. Good to have you in, Sid. I know that you're coming up to Scotland pretty soon. I'd be hopeful that you and I can share a wee dram together, buddy, and thank you for your support. It's been a barflies over 59 months. Major Nut is also in. He's bought me a generous dram saying, Permashelf for me is whiskies. I may not run out and get as soon as they're finished, but I would always buy again without hesitation. Slancher, Roy, and all. Very, very similar there. We don't need to force it. We don't need to be guaranteed to have a backup as soon as this disappears, but always in mind that as soon as we see the other one there, or we're in a purchase mood to buy something, we know it's diminished and we know we like to have it there. When we're in the mood for it, we know we like to be able to reach for it, so we replace it. That's very much what I've gone along with tonight. Major Nut, thank you very much for your generous dram. Cheers. Bud Jenkins, my pal Bud, is here. Good to see you. The concept of Permashelf is important, but we all need to have a few exploration bottles too. That's right, Bud. There's absolutely no doubt. And I think most weeks on the vPub, I think we explore and we pick up new things and we go in different directions and we look at different aspects. So the Permashelf was a nice little kind of topic to kind of make us focus on core range bottles, things that's generally available to most people, brands that are recognizable, those kind of things that we would feel happy and content about having continually at hand, that have consistently delivered good quality experiences for us. George P is saying, good evening, Roy, and to all the barflies. We'll have to catch this one on replay, but looking forward to it. Have a great vPub. George, it was nice to have you in ever so briefly, buddy. And now that you're picking it up in the replay, welcome back, George. I hope you're sitting comfortably and hope you've got a nice Permashelf in the glass. Whiskey 101, Nick. Good to see you, Nick. He's saying, evening, Roy. I love the idea of an ever-changing or temporary Permashelf, or as some people call it, a shelf. Just kidding. It's a challenge for many of us. And I know, and you know, I don't know, it has to be quite a strong shelf to hold 10 bottles of whiskey as well. So, you know, Perma cabinet just didn't sound as easy. It's this doesn't seem as nice. I don't know. Pedro Menezes is saying, good evening, barflies. Good evening. That's Pedro in Brazil. Good to have you in, buddy. Yeah, good evening right back at you. And Max is saying, good evening, my friend. I don't really have a Permashelf, certainly not 10 bottles, but Springbank 10 and Thompson Brothers, TBBSW come to mind. But there's not enough space and too much out there to try. I think that's right. And I think that what we have, and you've heard me speaking a wee bit about this, and I hope you don't mind me doing it, it's certainly a thing, that always when I speak about whiskey, I'm going to speak about it from the perspective of where I am in whiskey right now, and me been sipping and enjoying whiskey for 20 years now. But I always want to make the vPub a place where somebody could come in, and this could be their first ever vPub or session tonight, and see me talking about whiskies that they can make a note of, a mental note of, that they can relate to, that they can recognize, things that I'm standing up here and saying, I recommend it for these reasons, and this is the reason I consider this a permanent fixture on my shelf, a Permashelf bottle. Everyone is saying, ahoy malt mates, good to see you, Chris. I hope you're keeping well. And Chris Pollack is saying, the me of 2014 put some Clynelish distillery editions on the Permashelf, and I'm afraid of opening it now. Some of those wee precious ones, especially the ones that have gone out of reach, discontinued, too expensive, whatever the reason might be for you not being able to get them anymore, Chris, absolutely. They become a wee bit of a ball and chain. I have noticed, and I really noticed it at a tasting that we did in Paisley last year. I opened some Milestone bottles that had been gathering dust for far too long. You know, bottles that had strong associations with the journey of the channel and things. But there was, 20 odd, 30 barflies in a room in Paisley, and I just took them along and shared them, and I found it really quite liberating. So why don't you go and grab a wee bottle of Clynelish and see if you liberate it and see if it's as good as you remember, Chris. That's me bullying you into opening something. Gordon Burniston is in. Good to see you, Gordon. We got to meet recently, didn't we? Fantastic to have you in tonight. Evening Aquaviti, great to meet you properly last week. Yes, you point that out. At the Thompson Brothers tasting, brilliant night. Fingers crossed at that ex-Isla Cask in the ballot tomorrow. Okay, I saw there's quite a few emails been flying about for Thompson Brothers ballots and things like that. I haven't entered any myself. Try and keep it a wee bit less competitive for you guys, maybe. It's not been being nice, it's just me. I've already allocated my funds for January, so that's it. Graham Fraser is here, good to see you, buddy. Evening, Roy Aquaviti, and all the barflies. Nice to have you in, Graham. Graham Walt James is saying, 100%, mine changes as often as I keep my promiscuity with whiskey. Always more to try, and my go-tos change with time and my palate preferences. A shift is happening right now. I don't know if it's a shift that's happened with me, but I think I've become a little bit more focused, let's say. Mirko is saying, good evening, Roy. Looking forward to a relaxing evening. And Oderty is in saying, I don't have a Permashelf. There's still so much to try. Spot on. This is in no way intended to encourage anyone to have a section of their whiskey collection that they must not let run out, okay? It's not even to encourage people to necessarily develop the habit of having something that they replace as soon as it runs out. It's just a fun topic. Through my choices, my selection, the way I share them with you tonight, everything is intended to be light and fun and just another something that I find interesting that I can share with everybody that joins the vPub. In a lot of ways, it's a little bit old-fashioned. Think of back in the days, post-war days, through 50s, 60s, 70s, into the 80s, into the 90s, even right up to today, most casual most casual whiskey drinkers, I promise that's all I've had tonight, this wee drama Kilkerran, most of them will have a brand that they buy and they sip from top to bottom, and they have another bottle on hand, or they replace it as soon as it's disappeared. And they probably pick up the same brand and replace it because they quite enjoyed the last bottle. The idea of switching brands is not really exploration to them. It's just something they know that that's a whiskey, that's a liquid that they enjoy, and they're going to buy it and replace it again. And that happened for years. In fact, you could argue that the reason that the original grocers back in the 19th century, it blended those mixed malts from all over the country together to a specific recipe was to offer their patrons, their customers, a consistent product each time that they came in. When they finished it, they could replace it with a flask, a small cask, a big bottle, whatever it was, of the exact same thing. So the concept of Permashelf and the way that we enjoy whiskey and our promiscuity and our exploration, it's an odd thing to talk about, to be loyal to a product or loyal to a brand. The reason I'm sharing it with you tonight is because I think that all 10 bottles that I'm going to share with you tonight, and the bottles I've shared with you in the past, quite honestly, have deserved to reach that position where you can talk about it, you can share it, you can enjoy it, and it is something that you genuinely feel as it's getting close to the bottom of the bottle that you want to go out and pick up a replacement. It's not the type of whiskey that you want to be without, despite all your exploration and all your new bottles and brand new shiny things to try. So it's a wee bit of an old-fashioned concept, I get it. Everyone is saying there is comfort in old reliables. I think I'm definitely tapping into that tonight, Chris. And John van der Bort is in. Good to see you, Johnny. Saying glad to be here at the start for a change, celebrating selling my old flat with an Anok 24 I found today. Not a Permashelf, but a banger. It is a banger indeed, and one that is for the chopping block. So if you were to happen to trip over another and you enjoy it that much, John, please pick it up. We might touch upon Inverhouse International Beverage tonight. We might touch upon the whole idea of the rebranding and things that's happening here. In fact, there's a bottle of theirs in the lineup that will give me the perfect opportunity to do just that, almost as if it were planned, right? My pal from Germany, Doc McAllen is in. Good to see you, buddy. Good to keep. I hope you're keeping well, Doc. You and the family. Nice to have you in the vPub. And everyone, Chris is saying Permashelf is Boona 12, Arran 10, Redbreast 12 cast strength, Orchard House, Midnight Silky, Glendronach 12, HP 12, Glen 15, Springbank 10, Doublewood falls off for cost. Ooh. Okay, so he's heavily into his islands, his Irelands, and his Campbelltowns there. Right, we blended malt in to mix the numbers up. A good wee list there, Chris. And listen, anybody that's joining in after the event or during tonight or whatever, if you want to share your list of 10, probably the comments underneath is the best place for it, because then the community that join and turn up to listen to this don't just need to take my 10 bottles. I'm more confident about this list of 10 that I'm going to share with you tonight than I have been in the past. I'll just say that. I'm feeling pretty confident about it right now. Since there are 300 odd of you in right now, I always forget to do this, and I'm sorry, it's a bit of a pain to remind everyone, but leave a wee like. Not because, if you're not liking it, if you're not made up your mind yet, wait, hang on a wee bit, sure. But the people that come along and they look at a 2 hour, a 3 hour vPub session, they must look at it and say, why would I? But if there's enough likes there, the like ratio against view ratio reassures them that it's legitimate content and there is interesting takes and topics and bottles and all the rest of it in there. Anyway, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining me for another Thursday night. Cheers. Welcome all. I am going to, it's not a dirty glass, it's the same malt that's going in here. It looks like there's going to be maybe 1 dram, just over a dram left in the bottom of this wee Campbelltown bottle. And I'm just going to do the decent thing. And, wow, these always looks so much less in the bottle, right? You put it in a Glencadam and it's a big old pour. That's okay. So that's me finished off the first bottle for the Permashelf tonight. And immediately you're saying, oh, Roy, come on. Come on, come on. I can't buy this. This is Kilkerran's 12-year-old. Kilkerran has been my whiskey of the year. Kilkerran's been my producer of the year. I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of Glengyle Distillery down in Campbelltown. I really can't think of many occasions where they've bottled something that I haven't thought, wow, it's genuinely fantastic. It is absolutely without doubt that my collection could shrink down to less than 10 bottles. And there would still be a Kilkerran in that collection that would absolutely be there. And I was chewing over the reasoning behind Kilkerran not appearing on any of the Permashelf lists that I've done before. I mean, the one in 2022 or the one in 2024, Kilkerran never got a mention. Why is that? And I think that's how we need to start the proceedings tonight. I need to explain why some of the legends, some of the crackers, some of the ones that I'm constantly talking about didn't appear in this so-called Permashelf list. Sandra St. Chow, Ardnamurchan cast strength bottles are definitely now part of my Permashelf. Fantastic, and a good pick from Ardnamurchan, the cast strength as well, Sandro. Nice to have you in. David from Portugal. Good to see you, buddy. The point of doing lists is to do serious, organised, prioritised thinking. Thank you, David. It's absolutely true. It's challenging, but it's good to do. It's always okay, and in this case, good to go back and change things if we think differently. Glad we're both on the same wee hymn sheet there, David. Nice to have you in. And Doc is saying, Agavidi, I simply can't afford to have a Permashelf given my low consumption. I would limit myself to boring, low variation. That's an interesting thing as well that you say there, Doc, because I know that you're a voracious sharer. I know that you have events and you bring people over to your house and things like that as well. And what I always notice about the levels in my collection is they get hit and they drop the more people that are coming here, the more people that are taking and enjoying whiskey, either sipping with me on the night or taking away with them in wee sample bottles, whatever it may be. That is how I get through a lot of it. But I do have to hold my hand up and admit, I'm not trying to make out that I'm a low consumption whiskey enjoyer as well, because I don't think that would be true. My consumption of whiskey is definitely higher than your average bear. But I absolutely agree, Doc, that your consumption is much, much lower than mine. And a concept like a Permashelf could be tough for you. Jimmy Legacy saying, hi there, Yaloon. Good evening, everyone. Fantastic to have you in, Jimmy. Wonderful to see you. Hi there, Yaloon. Right back at you. Dramface Tim is saying, Arn 10, Speyburn 15, Craigellachie 13, Loch 10, Permashelf 10, Springbank 10. He's not quite hit 10 bottles yet. He's at 6 so far, but notice every single one has an age statement. I think that's quite interesting. Mike Molasses saying, I did have a Permashelf of 10 bottles of Kilkerran 12 if I could find 10 bottles of Kilkerran 12. Now, having a wee chat with somebody, it wasn't recently, it was way back in the depths of 2024 last year, and we got on to talking about Campbelltown whiskey specifically. I think what started it was a Glen Scotia festival bottling. We went on to talk about Kilkerrans, and obviously we went on to talk about Springbanks and Longrose and Hazelburns and all of those things that are, to some people they genuinely are unicorn bottles. Even to the people that's right next to where it gets made here in Scotland, they are very, very tough to get your hands on. It takes effort. You can't go into the local specialist retailer even and expect to see a Springbank 10, 15 or a Kilkerran 12 or 16 guaranteed to be on the shelf. It has started to happen a wee bit more round about the time that they drop, of course, that the new batches come out, but they're very, very quickly snapped up. And there's often mechanisms in place to control the flow and the sale of it so that somebody isn't coming in and buying 2 cases and just having a dozen bottles of Kilkerran 12 and taking them out the door. It's just the way of it. It's the way that things are with those whiskies. And I talked about it and I said, yes, I've been very, very careful about evangelizing about whiskies that constantly frustrate people that they can't get their hands on. And they corrected me on the spot, said, you should not do this. And of course that they're right. They didn't disagree with what I was doing, but they pointed out that for so many people that have the ability to occasionally happen upon these bottles, or that make the effort to seek them out by going to Campbelltown or ordering at auction for not too much over the retail price, of course, all of these things, there may be a wee bit crestfallen that I never talk about them on the vPub, simply because they take a bit more effort to get a hold of. And for everybody that cannot get a hold of it, at all, not even secondary or taking a trip to Campbelltown or anything, that the chances of them having these Campbelltown rarities, for everyone that exists, there is someone else that does. And for me to focus on one or to omit one would be to ignore a group of people. And I think that that's right. So my Permashelf should have always been about me, and a genuine expression from me of me feeling anxious when certain bottles disappear. And that is absolutely true when I talk about Kilkerran's 12-year-old. So the reason that there is wholesale changes, 60%, that's 6 bottles out of 10, are new bottles in tonight's Permashelf, is me coming at it from that perspective. Slow down on the inclusivity thing. Evangelize about the things that you're genuinely confident about. And if you're going to talk about a concept like feeling anxiety when there's a malt whiskey that you might not be able to pour of a Friday evening for yourself anymore, you should talk about that, not the bottle that you feel a bit more comfortable that more people can get a hold of. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how I'm couching the 2025 Permashelf. Chris is saying, Aquavita, my Permashelf is very budget driven. If I could afford Glendronach 18, Deanston 18, Boonah 18, Arran 18 as a Permashelf, I absolutely would. Sadly, that is not the case for me. So I will go as far to say that I have been mindful of the fact that budget is a huge part of it. There's one teenager in here. There's one bottle that you may consider being premium. There's a few teenagers in here actually, but there's one in here that you would consider maybe a bit premium. But even at that, it's probably one of the, if not the best in its price bracket. So I have been very thoughtful. I've tried to get the perfect balance between people that are coming into the hobby and people that have been here for a long time. But as I've just said to you, I'm going for whiskies that are core range, natural, fairly priced, recognizable, if not generally available, things that everyone can relate to. Kilkerran 12 is a good example of that. And Papa Q saying, I have a soft spot for Glencadam 12. It'll always be on my shelf despite the E150A. Papa Q. Glencadam 12-year-old. It's 48% ABV, natural. Natural from the respect it was unchill filtered. Made it into the Permashelf in 2024. It is caramel colour altered. It has E150A colouring in there to make it a bit darker, we're told. Make it a bit more consistent, we're told. Let's see if I've been lenient enough to let it stay in the top 10 in 2025. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'll do the reveal first. I'll go through the 6 bottles that are new for 2025, and then the last 4 bottles which are consistent from last year's list. And I think they are also consistent from 2022's list as well. So with those 4 bottles, you know I'm being absolutely genuine. Okay, let's get on. Kilkerran's 12-year-old, in my mind, in my appreciation and my whiskey journey, has only got better since it first popped out in 2016. Kilkerran, 12-year-old, finally hit the market in 2016, and it's been around ever since, albeit something that takes a wee bit of effort to get your hands on. That said, it's a wee bit more available than the next bottle that's going to appear from the same region. Let's see if you can guess what that is ahead of me. I pay somewhere in the order of £50 for Kilkerran 12 in the UK. 52 maybe, 54, something like that. This is 12 years old, beautifully dense, fruity. It's always a vatting, so it's a mix of bourbon and sherry cask, but the sherry cask influence in Kilkerran 12 is very light. So if you prefer that kind of fruitier, more kind of bourbon-leaning style, this is right up your street. This particular bottle, and there's a code on it that you can actually read on Kilkerran's. It's down there as a little kind of dot matrix inkjet code on here, 12-year Kilkerran, 25th of June 2021, this particular batch is. So this has been around for a while. This particular one is one that I was savouring. I found it to be just that little bit extra juicy, extra dense, and it was one of my favourites. However, I'm suspicious that with these wee dregs that are left, this is still a gorgeous glass of whiskey, don't get me wrong, but I suspect it might have lost a little bit of its prickle and detail. And it's not because I've had it open on the shelf necessarily for that amount of time on its own. What is likely to happen with bottles like this in my collection is because of what I do in the channel and in Dramface and other places. I'm going to be comparing 2 or 3 batches together. So I often am in a situation where I've got more than one open. So as if to prove to you that it is available, what batch is on this one? It's harder to read against with the whiskey in the background. This is 10th of May 2022, this one. So I'm going to suggest to you this has been sitting about for a wee while, potentially, this one. I've not bought any Kilkerran 12 at auction, so this has been bought at retail. Perhaps maybe when I was down in Campbelltown or something like that, and it's just kind of been sitting there waiting. So, Permashelf, absolutely. There's a recharge, and number one is on our back shelf there already. We'll just list them up. Listen, apologies for the glare from the light bar here, but as we go through tonight, that'll fill up, and people will be able to come in a wee bit later or whatever and see what I've been talking about. So number one on Permashelf for 2025, and I apologise to everybody that cares about whiskey that it didn't make it in previous lists, but if I should have considered the pure definition of that Permashelf thing, it absolutely should, because at least for those years, in fact, since 2017, Kilkerran 12 has been a Permashelf bottle for yours truly. Gordon Burnley's Deanston opened a 2024 Kilkerran 16 last weekend. First time trying, was a fantastic, elegant dram. My whiskey of the year last year, Gordon. It's just beautiful liquid. The only caveat I have with Kilkerran 16, and I always have to say it, is that I do think, and it sounds like a whiskey snob coming out, I do think you need a wee bit of experience under your belt to appreciate that there is really something quite special and magical about 16-year-old, or actually just mature Glengyle spirit in general. The 16-year-old, you would imagine you take this 12 and extrapolate another 4 years on top of that, and that's what you're thinking you're going to get with a 16. But often you get this really quite magical, white fruit, tropical fruit, grassy, malty, delicate, just ever so subtle, gorgeous whiskey. Really, at 46%, you just slow down with it and enjoy it and savor it. Glad you're loving it. Sugar Kitty's saying that's a $120 bottle for me. Keep drinking it at that price while you can. So that's where you are, and that's what I'm talking about, Sugar Kitty. And I've always been sensitive to people like you that are challenged by paying a wee bit more. I mean, that's probably somewhere in the region of $80 or $90, isn't it? 80 or 90 pounds. So that is quite overpriced. If you found a 12-year-old Daft Mill at 46%, you would be paying similar money, right? Though, so it's a wee bit about scarcity and things. And I am not advocating that prices go up. I'm not advocating that you pay over the odds. I'm not advocating that you encourage your retailer to do the same. Nor am I suggesting that you run off and pay too much at secondary for that. But you maybe are going to travel, or you maybe are going to be in a position where you can pick this up at something that is priced a wee bit higher than a peer 12-year-old. It's worth it. But I can't speak for everyone. I'm sorry you can't get hold of it, Jeff. If we ever cross paths, let me know. Remind me. It'll be a Kilkerran, at least a Kilkerran, that makes it in as a wee travel dram for you. Cheers. James is Graham Walt saying, I sipped a 15-year-old fresh bourbon Kilkerran I bought back home from the warehouse station last year. Made the right choice there out of all the available casks we tried. Cracking dram. So again, it's that fresh bourbon, refill bourbon, a vatting between fresh and refill bourbon, bourbon. It's going to be a bit of a mantra for me. I know it has been for years. It's always been my favourite style, but I'm still frustrated that there's so little of it represented in core range product. Okay, we've got Glenmorangie been doing bourbon for years. Glenmorangie, do me a favour. Thanks for the extra 2 years on your original, but can you bring us out a 46% plus, 48% all natural, unchill filtered Glenmorangie original? I suspect it would be spectacular. Join the ranks of the likes of people from Deanston, bringing this fantastic Deanston 12s, Deanston 18s, Glencadam 10, Glencadam 18, bit pricey, far too pricey in Glencadam 18. But it's always been a fantastically beautiful, delicate, Highland, stone fruit driven malt whiskey, and it shines in bourbon casks, subtle bourbon casks. Let's move on to the next one, because I know you've guessed it already. Clicks to St. Kilkerran 12, Springbank 10, with some hunting, Benromach 10, Craigellachie 13, Clynelish 14, or Thompson Brothers SRV 5, Lechic 10, Thompson Brothers BSW, Ardnahoe AD, elements of Islay, Cask and Port Charlotte 10. Fantastic list with some overlap. So you've already picked out, and I asked a lot of patrons if they wanted to do a wee list of their own and share it with us. And absolutely they did. They put it in, and I was really quite surprised how many of them put this bottle forward. Springbank's 10-year-old take everything that we've just said about this Kilkerran 12, and I was just about to pour this. There's a wee, you can see there's dregs left in the bottom of this as well. I'm not, because I suspect I'm only 2 bottles in, and I'm going to make it so that I'm only having a dram from every second bottle tonight. But you can see this wee Springbank 10 is almost on its way out, and I have been fortunate enough. Good Spirits Company just last year. I was there at the right time. I was in when just been in for a day or so, and they still had a couple of bottles left, and I managed to pick up a Springbank 10. I suspect that this one and other ones like it, I've been able to pick up from wee trips down to Campbelltown. So I have been able to get it. I have never bought it at secondary market. I have never paid over the odds at retail. I've always just paid retail for it. I'm very, very fortunate. And I know that a lot of people aren't always that fortunate. I have had Springbank 10 on my shelf since probably 2018 or 2019. Maybe longer than that. And through the times where it was very, very difficult to get a hold of any Springbank whatsoever, it's true that I would have been a wee bit more judicious, a wee bit more kind of careful about how much I was pouring. Concerned because it absolutely was a Permashelf concept, and I always wanted to have Springbank 10. Springbank 18 is a wonderful, nice, delicious, fantastic whiskey to have. Springbank 15 can be quite challenging from time to time, but again, a really nice whiskey to have. But the 10 is absolutely a Permashelf. Once more, I apologise to everybody in my community that Springbank didn't get a mention. I was trying and focusing on price in previous lists. I was focused on availability, on market distribution, on the fact that this brand, Springbank, became such a hot potato during the crazy, dizzy, bottle-chasing COVID years. I omitted it for those reasons, and I don't think that's the right way to approach a Permashelf. Once more, I'm going to suggest to you that if you don't pay over the odds, we're secondary, maybe 5, 10, 15 pounds a wee bit more over retail, 60 or 70 pounds, something like that, and you can get it to you with fees and shipping and everything at a reasonable price, it's maybe worth seeking it out. But generally, wait till you travel, wait till you find yourself, wait till you connect up with somebody who's got one or something. Whiskey finds you. You will get to it. You'll be relieved to know that for every other bottle that I've got here tonight, they're generally available, much more widely available than these two. However, 2 of them are about to disappear, and it's sad times indeed. Aye. Chris Pollack is saying, I still have a Springbank 10 in my stash with the labels used before the with the labels used before the labels you got in the bottles did not have the courage to open it. Okay, so you've got the black label with the kind of gradient fade word mark of Springbank up and down on the label. I know exactly the ones, and that's the ones that I used to have. I think they changed about 2017 or something, I think, to these brightly coloured labels. They're not pretty bottles, but they're very reassuring to see sitting on your shelf, the different colours. Okay, Roy, you forced me to pour a wee dram of Kilkerran 12. I do not regret it. So far, enjoying it more than Springbank. Well, here's to you, Major Nut, and I'm glad you are enjoying it. And Clutch is saying, that's the advantage of being a slow drinker, I guess. I've plenty of time to replace my Springbank 10. By the time it reaches that last third, I'm always able to find one eventually. Well, here's to finding things eventually. Cheers, Clutch. Love it. Love Kilkerran 12. It's one of my all-time favourites these days. It really, really is. Chris is saying, exactly. In Ardnahoe's Doodle, the drama is saying, regardless of distillery, would you want to have a certain style of expression or whiskey on your shelf? Well, I love how the community reads my mind. So what I did is, after I had committed to my list, because I found myself in previous Permashelf lists trying to say, well, have I got an Isla in there? Have I got a peat bomb in there? Have I got a sherry bomb in there? Have I got something from the Lowlands, something from Speyside, something from blah, blah, blah? Stop. These are incidental concepts, aren't they? Especially in 2025. You can make anything you like in the Lowlands. Look at Glasgow Distillery with a triple distilled, light, fruity stone fruit. Fantastic thing. And their original, which is kind of sits in the middle, a wee bit of both, and alongside their heavily peated. And they're in the Lowlands and they're making anything that they like. That you copy and paste that right across the country. You don't need to have the setup that Glasgow has. You don't need to have peated and unpeated. You can generally play around and change your profile regardless of where you are located. Even the most remote places like Ardnamurchan are making peated and unpeated. Rassie, out in Isle of Rassie, 2 ferries to get to Rassie, peated and unpeated. I love regions in Scotch whisky. I love the regionality. I like it as a way to categorize things, to measure things, a metric. I like it as a way to explain things. But in 2025, we're way past the idea of defining what distilleries exist within those regions based on flavour, because they can make anything and do anything that they want. And there isn't really that consistency. I think there is still a classic Highlander, classic Speyside, classic Islay, all of these things. It still does exist, but these days, I don't know how valid they are. So what I did with the Permashelf list this time around is I made the list, and then I just looked at how the fallout was. How many Islay whiskies are in there? How many sherry bombs are in there? How many Speysiders? How many Highlanders? As usual with these things, I was surprised. But we've already gone from a place where the past 2 Permashelfs have not had a single mention of Campbelltown. Horrendous. I'm sorry. That's not true. It's not representative of my actual Permashelf. Tonight we're getting back to something that's a bit more closer to the concept. We have 2 Campbelltowns to start tonight. But just as what was being asked by Arnie a second ago, how many did I end up with from each region? I can tell you that, surprisingly, I've got 4, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4 from Speyside. I would have been struggling to find 1 from Speyside if you'd asked me to predict a list. How many are going to be from Speyside? Oh, maybe 1. I am now down to only 1 from Islay. Only 1 exists from Islay on the Permashelf. Highlanders, there are 3. So that's 4, 3, 1. That's 8. That's the 8 bottles left. There is peat in here. There's lots of bourbon in here. We're a little bit light on sherry. But it's in there. Kind of a, sort of a. Let's get on with it, will we? I'm going to keep sharing the new ones with you. Excess to Scotches and Agaviti. Good evening, Roy. Speyburn 15 is the one I now drink and is a Permashelf for me, Slantia. I love you guys. Arnie Doodle Dram. It's like you're reading my mind, and here's Excess to Scotch and doing the exact same thing. Maybe you're not all readers, but there's a website out there that I'm involved in, as you know, called Dramface, dramface.com. And every single day of the week, Monday to Friday, there's a new article published on Dramface. It is a bottle review that's sometimes multiple people reviewing the same bottle or a single person reviewing multiple bottles. There's a new bottle review every single day, and it is utterly random because it is based on what the writer is enjoying or motivated to write about at that point in time. There is no dogma, there's no policy, there's no guidance. People can write about what they want to write about when they want to write about it. I hope you're enjoying it. I know that not everyone is a reader. Dramface is growing like a weed. It's doing tremendous things. It's lovely to be part of it. The team are really close and supportive of each other, respectful of the fact that we have very different outlooks on we're different by definition. We're different people, so we don't have the same, but we're respectful because that's what whiskey environments do. They bring us together and they make us realize if we focus on the whiskey, we're going to see each other as people. It's a really concentrated example of that, and I absolutely adore it. Dramface.com. Please just give it a wee bit of your time. You know, if you're bored on the train traveling, what am I going to do about it? Just go to Dramface. Search for anything you like. We're well over 1,100 reviews now, daily reviews. These are long-form content, so there tends to be a bit of a story, a bit of context. There's a lot built around. It's not just tasting notes and a score. It's much more human than that. I'm proud of it. I love it. I'm proud of the team. I think it's a fantastic thing. And I think that these things are precious. And if I don't shout about them, maybe somebody might not happen across it. Anyway, today's thing went out, and it's just out pure coincidence. Today's review went out talking about a very, very specific concept, and that's chill filtration in whiskey. And it was a Speyburn product, Speyburn 10. So there was the official 10-year-old is 40% and unchill 40% unchill filtered. But they also had a travel retail exclusive, the exact same 10-year-old, but presented at 46% unchill filtered. So it was the review and the tasting notes was a comparison of those two, but then all around this was the concept of chill filtration and the whiskey industry attitude to it versus the enthusiasts' attitude to it, and how that they're really quite not aligned whatsoever. And from that, the decisions that we're all nervous about that's being made by Inverhouse, which is International Beverage Holdings, and what they are doing is looking at Speyburn and rebranding it, which is fine, but they are changing their gorgeous 15-year-old and 18-year-old from 46 down to 40%, which means it's chill filtered. Don't let anybody tell you that no colour is removed by chill filtration. It absolutely is. It absolutely makes the liquid lighter in most cases. That some whiskies are more affected than others. But it's mostly about mouthfeel, texture. It's mostly about aroma and flavour, body, weight of the whiskey, authenticity. It's not good. I'm going to go into Dramface right now because they are actually running a petition right now. And the reason that they're running a petition right now is because they don't want this to happen, or they don't want it to happen and go unnoticed. So there is a petition there. And it's not really for any other reason. It's no demands. It's not petulance. It's a genuine, heartfelt appeal to give feedback to Inverhouse to say, have you really thought about this? Are you really aware of how good a product that you have there? So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to drop that petition link into the vPub with your permission. I hope you don't mind, and ask everyone if you'd be interested in. Now there's a way to get a proper link for this, isn't there? Yes, there we go. I'll drop that into the vPub chat right now, and I'll pin it at the top so that anybody popping in can see. And I'll just type here, please sign. But only sign if you believe in the article and in the plea that's written in the petition. It's there because we're offering it up as another feedback stream, another metric that they can measure their product development by. Just add some E150 and the colour problem is solved, says Doc. Absolutely. Gav's Drams is saying just killed a Bailey Nickel Jarvie. Now there's a blast from the past, Gav. That doesn't surprise me at all. I've got a wee tiny drop of Bailey Nickel Jarvie left. I tend to find that nostalgia has made it better than it was. I think it's the one I've got is beaten by modern blends. I have to be honest with you, but it's been open a wee while. Alistair Gray is saying, I didn't know about this. I'll share with my Facebook groups, Friends of Speyburn. There is a petition there live, Alistair. It went out on Dramface today. No rush for it. It's going to be up for a wee while just to see what kind of interest we get. So by all means, leave your comments on Dramface under the article or whatever. But if you do go along to sign that petition, leave your comments there as well. Because I suspect that the people behind the brand development at Speyburn at Inverhouse, they are going to probably not read Dramface. They're not going to watch the vPub, but they may look at the petition and see what the feedback in the comments section has been. So you can leave comments over there too. I am speaking to you, asking you to sign something that I have not yet signed myself, but I will immediately, post haste tomorrow. I'm definitely going to be signing this petition. I want to vocally support everything about it. Major Nut saying, I had the Speyburn 10, 40% with my closest whiskey buddy a while ago, and we both said how good it would be at 46. Well, it is available at 46, but only as a travel exclusive. Exclusive being the word there, right, Major Nut? Everyone is saying how screwed Old Pulteney by the rebranding. You would think they would have learned from that fiasco. Old Pulteney 12 is now often heavily discounted. Nobody is buying. The last Old Pulteney I had was not easily drinkable, Chris, and that's heartbreaking to somebody who used to espouse the gorgeous bargain that 40% Old Pulteney once upon a time was. I've become a wee bit more stubborn and belligerent later. And Aquavitae, my established lunchtime routine now, Doodle the Dram is saying. So he's saying he's gone over to Dramface at lunchtime. Doodle the Dram on Instagram, please give the boy a follow. His artwork is gorgeous to look at. The depth, the light, the colours, the animation, and the static images, of course, but they move. There is movement in all of these images and life in them all. Doodle the Dram on Instagram. That's our pal Arnie. A local Glaswegian German Glaswegian, whatever way you'd want to call him. Anyway, on topic, despite everything I've just said, Speyburn 15 is honestly, and you know this because you've heard me talking about this product for years on this very platform, on the vPub. You know that I have never got to the point where there is not much of this left. It's 65 to 70 pounds a bottle for a 15-year-old product. That, by the way, says unchill filtered, natural colour on the label. Everything we ask is here. All we need is for this to be good liquid. And I put it to the majority of the drinkers out there, single malt or otherwise, you've forgotten how good this is. You've maybe never experienced how good this is. I hope you have. There is a very specific style of whiskey that is difficult to procure anywhere else in Scotland, and that is what comes out of Mortlach. There is a weight and a boldness and a robustness from that distillery owned by Diageo that people have come to call it the Beast of Dufton. Now, occasionally you'll get an umami note, a beefy, meaty, savoury, sweaty note from Mortlach. It can be quite prominent sometimes. Sometimes you'll get beef stock, beef hula hoops, all of these kind of beefy flavours and meaty flavours. So to try and say to somebody who can't find Mortlach, can't afford Mortlach, where else do you go? There is really, really not many alternatives. This Speyburn 15 is an alternative. When Mortlach Flora and Fauna was discontinued, people were picking up the Dillion 16, and closer in style, I would say, was the Benromach 15, which was also kind of partial triple distilled. It's only double distilled these days, but older Flora and Faunas, no problem. Partial double distillation, partial triple distillation. I get that comparison completely. This is closer than those by some way. Now, you might not pick this up and get those umami, savoury, beefy notes. I would suggest this is more of a juicy style of whiskey, but the boldness, the weight and the body and the interaction that you have on the palate with Mortlach, sometimes, and what's been wonderful, I've poured this for other people and they've guessed Mortlach. And that was without me suggesting or leading in any way. And that's just so reassuring to me because that's how it made me feel. 65 to 70 pounds. 15-year-old natural whiskey, but this is disappearing. This is being discontinued, and this is being replaced by a 40% range. The details have still to be released. The details have still to be finalized. That might be a good thing. We've not seen it on the shelf yet. I couldn't even find any images. I was sure that there was once upon a time an image with a 40% label. I couldn't find it. I searched for it. But this is one of the two bottles out of the Permashelf tonight that is at risk of disappearing. At that price, don't pay over the odds for it, but at that price point, there is no better value in Scotch whisky. And I struggle, every time I talk about this whisky, I struggle to find an alternative at the price point and the presentation. It really is that good. It really is that good. which is why I'm going to sign that petition. Inverhouse got us excited as well. Their sister distillery, Knockdhu, is bringing back their ex-bourbon matured Annox 16. Hallelujah. Thank the whiskey gods. Except for some misguided reason, for the same misguided reasons that they're putting this out at a diluted, filtered 40%, they're putting the new Annox 16 out at 43%, when the previous legend that it replaced was 46% unchill filtered and natural colour written on the label. Somebody is not listening. Maybe it's because somebody, us, we're not shouting loudly enough. That's why the petition is there. I hope you'll sign it. I hope you'll consider it. It's about integrity. It's about authenticity. It's about being genuine. And it's about it's not being part of the race to the bottom, not chasing cheap for short term, but chasing good for long term. Look at the first two whiskies I've picked tonight. They don't care about the short term stuff. In 1980s, Janie Mitchell made a decision about how they were going to handle their whiskey going forward. And now they are the most sought after whiskey on the planet. Forget about your Macallans, forget about your Ardbegs. The people in the know want Springbank. Because of that, quality and integrity always wins out. Petition signed, says Sharmilla Suze. Thank you very much, Sharmilla. Thank you for taking the time out. I just open up a wee browser. You don't need to go. You can have a wee read at it at your leisure later, and you can and sign it after the event. Chew it over the next few days. Don't need to sign it straight away. I realise that putting your signature on a petition, I'm asking you for a valuable thing. Sugar Kitty saying, despite Springbank prices, Speyburn 15 is $65 for me, and I have 6 or 7 of them before they disappear. I am not going to criticise you for hoarding. I am doing the same. Dominic Fife is saying, should Brown-Forman be in the dock too? Why remove non-chill filtered from Glendronach, Glenglassaugh and Benromach? Or if it is it or isn't it? Surely they are losing more sales than they are gaining. Nobody's talking about Glendronach anymore. Nobody's talking about Glendronach. Glenglassaugh, horrendous news about Glenglassaugh. A fantastic new range of products, ever so close. 45% instead of 46%. Why is that important? 46% could have meant that they maybe didn't need to chill filter. All natural whiskey would have been so excited about it. Still a good whiskey, it really is. But it could have been so much better. And then the two non-age statement higher ABV ones that went out there, they were unchill filtered. But they need to be much more explicit about the state of the colouring on those whiskies, the bottling. This has got nothing to do with the fact that that distillery closed. Nothing. That's because of the bigger picture in whiskey right now, I don't doubt. I feel sorry for everyone that's lost their jobs, especially in such a remote location away up there. But yeah, that's the whole point of the article on Dramface today. Understanding how these decisions are made, what people are involved in the room, what compromises are getting made when these products are being developed. Graham Walt James is saying the Annox 16 new is in Sweden already. Got sent a sample. It's good, but nowhere near the old one. Profile is different. Not sure if it's 100% ex-bourbon. I'm guaranteed. I've been told it is 100% ex-bourbon. James, I remember you taking the last drops out of my last bottle of Annox 16-year-old, the last full bottle I had. I took it along to that tasting that you were at, and I remember you declaring it your dram of the night. Well, a lot of other people in the room and loving it. It was nice for me to share it with you. Bud Jenkins is saying, thanks for bringing the petition to our attention. Signed with enthusiasm. I shout with you on this at any time. Thank you, Bud. Grain of Malt James is saying, maybe it's a grower. Hits a bit thin initially, but the old 16 did the same for me initially. Daryl Drama is saying, maybe Benromach Cask Strength should be an alternative for everyone not able to get Springbank 10. Watch this space. Arnie, reading my mind again. And Gordon Burniston is saying, genuine question, Aquavidi, how much of a voice do the enthusiast community have on issues like this? Are they seeing, listening, but just not caring? Yes. Not much of a voice, unfortunately. They see us as being very, very small amount of people. But maybe if you remember Andre Habrecht being on the show, he talked about 1% being very, very vocal, 9% being engaged enthusiasts, and 90% being the market. But the 90% are led by those 9%, and those 9% are led by the vocal people who step up to take action. That's a German concept, I believe, Arnie, right? So, sorry, it wasn't Arnie, it was asking, it was Gordon. So I just like that, and it makes a lot of sense in my head, and I can see how it's a thing. But to be honest with you, a lot of people in the industry are impassioned, engaged, knowledgeable, enthused, genuine, doing the very, very best that they can. And a lot of people are less so. They're not into whiskey. They don't understand. They don't drink it and things. They're there because they're professionals at their role, at what they do. And I just think that the people who really know about the product should be given a wee bit more airspace to describe it, to talk about it, why these things are important, and why it's not always about profit and strategy and all the rest of it. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Signed and paid the €3. Access to Scottish, you don't need to pay anything. It should be absolutely free. I think that's probably change.org asking you to pay some admin money or something. Please don't pay. You don't need to pay. If you want to pay, that's fine. But I'm not going to see any money from that. You don't need to pay anything. Just the €3 is nothing to do with me. I don't think it's anything to do with Dramface. So if you can do it for free, please do it for free. Anarch 18 and 24 news. Yes, 18 and 24, 16 and I believe maybe a 21. Something that they're changing the lineup, Tim. Unfortunately, stock up. Bob Sander is saying, I've added my name to the petition with pleasure. Let's hope we can help save the 15 and 18. Now, that's going to be interesting because I don't know what number it was at. I think it was about 75 signatures when I last looked at it today. Fantastic, 131 signatures, but I think we could do a lot better than that. We don't need to keep it within this environment. We can share it wherever we enjoy whiskey and where things like this matter to us. Let's move on. Stevie O has bought me a dram, you superstar. There's a couple of drams come in. I've not even been paying attention. Some generosity happening here. My goodness, George P has gifted 10 Aquavitae memberships. Stevie O has gifted 20 Aquavitae memberships. Whiskey Liberation Front is in celebrating 58 months of being an Aquavitae member. A barfly. We'll have to watch the rest on replay. I hope you're all well. Thank you for being in, Legie, and thank you for picking it up on replay again. All these guys are clicking the join button on YouTube to keep all of the content on YouTube absolutely ad-free, to get access to channel-themed emoji and loyalty barflies, but also to support me, and it's super, super appreciated. Thanks to all the barflies out there that support. Jimmy Legg's bought a dram to say, I signed a petition this way. I'm Jimmy Legg, and I approve this message. Cloudy whiskey is the best whiskey. Actually, don't filter it at all. I'll pick it out the charred bits myself. And we're okay with it. We really are. But if you keep the ABV up high enough, there's a reason that Billy Walker does 48 and 50% ABVs these days, right? And a lot of the new releases. If you keep the ABV up high enough, 46 seems to be about the cutoff, 45 point something. Somewhere around there, these fats, these oils, these fatty acids, they stay in solution. And they don't go cloudy until the ice dilutes it a bit or whatever it is in the glass. It's malt. It's malt. We need to distinguish between malt and how it likes to be and other whiskies made from things that are not malted barley. Stevie O gifted 10 Aquavitae memberships. Again, Stevie O, thank you so much. And he's bought me a dram to say thank you for starting that petition, Wally at Dramface. Aye, well, Wally's not going to see any of my 20 quid, Stevie, but I'll take it. Thank you very much for the super, super generous dram. Cheers to you. Whiskey Total is saying welcome. It was just joined the Aquavitae Barflies. Thank you for stepping up to support Whiskey Total. I wonder if that's the first time I've welcomed you in. Might be a new name. In Whiskey Games, Matt Bishop said, could be the change at Speyburn due to International Beverage Group having business in the Far East where chill-filtered whiskey is preferred. Don't care. Sorry. Okay. We can provide chill-filtered whiskey. Light, delicate, polished, sparkly whiskey. But if you want to do that with malt, you need to compromise it. You need to alter it. And that's the sad thing. Major Nut is saying, good night, Roy, and catch you all in the replay, but do not know when, as it will be a busy weekend with our oldest turning 18. Wow. Well, many happy returns to your oldest. Now that you're back watching on the replay, Major Nut, I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Cheers, buddy. It's nice to have you in. Let's get another wee dram poured. It was Arnie that predicted that Benromach cast strength could take the place of a Campbelltown. We often call this the Springbank of Speyside. Now, of course, it's difficult for me to put in a core range Benromach, a 12-year-old. Sorry, a Benromach 10. 15-year-old or a 21-year-old, because they're all 43% and chill filtered. However, every single thing on this Benromach I've got in my hands right now is natural, 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 natural. We can ask for nothing more. This is one of the cast strength bottles that I have on hand. This is the vintage 2012. This is batch 3 from 2012 vintage. And it says here that it was distilled in 2012, bottled in 2022. So it's a 10-year product. 9 or 10 years, let's say. It says natural colour, it says non-chill filtered, it says it's a bottling made of 21 casks. It's got all the details on it. It talks about cast strength, what cast strength is, everything. And this is just fast become a legend of everyone's collection. I don't think there will be a time, especially if you ask me to pick one cast strength whiskey, I think this would have to be up there, really. Bunnahabhain is becoming good, really is good. Ardnamurchan is fantastic. There's a few others out there that we wait annually, or when's the next cast strength going to drop, because they're really very good. But this is always around. Different vintages, different batches all the time, but they celebrate the different batches. They celebrate the different vintages. It's almost like that they understand that this is malt whiskey and it wants to play a batch game because it's a batch-made product. How many of you out there would deny me having a cast strength Benromach on the Permashelf? It's fabulous. I didn't even pour one. Let's get it back here to get some in the glass. It's fabulous whiskey. Fabulous value. I think this one was, well, they're usually about £65 here in the UK, but I picked this one up on offer at 50 something, a wee bit cheaper. I've got another one over there that's been picked up a wee bit more recently, paid the normal price, 65, 67, something like that. And I think it's a 2014, 2013 batch. Because there's quite a bit of walk involved, so I won't bother. It's not, you don't need to know until I open it. It'll probably be opened on a vPub, probably the end of the year cast strength vPub. Oh, the nose is amazing. Right, it's an autumnal fruit here, lots of nuts and things. But amazing, you get this kind of almost mulchy. Sometimes it comes across a wee bit industrial, but right now that nose is very farm-like. Like outdoorsy, mulchy, leaf mulch, autumnal. The reason it gets called the Speyside, sorry, the Springbank of Speyside is obvious straight away. Nothing else from Speyside sips like this. Notice that I've got 2 Campbelltowns in the lineup so far and 2 Speyside. It's interesting. This particular batch is utterly drinkable, despite the fact it's at 59.6% ABV cast strength. So cast strength should be undiluted, the strength that it has been measured at as it was disgorged. So that's whether it's a single cask cast strength or whether it's a marriage, vatting of casks at cast strength. That just happened to turn out at 59.6, so every label, every batch is going to be different. Christoph is saying, I won't deny you that Benromach, I picked up the 2014 vintage. It is gorgeous. So it's one of the 2014 vintages I think that I've picked up more recently, Christoph. Don't know when I'll get around to opening that next one. Probably when this one disappears, because it's obviously it's Permashelf. But just delicious, tasty, unique Speyside whiskey. Bright flavour, very red, purples and reds and oranges, autumnal themes on the palate, a nice jamminess to it. And despite me suffering from a bit of peat blight, that Kilkerran 12 might have a wee bit of peat smoke in it too, but there is a There's a wee smoky edge to this tonight, just a wee savoury smoky edge, a wee lick of puff of distant smoke. Just sublime whiskey. That's why it's on the Permashelf. So we're 4 in. Let's go on to the next one. Let's get to the halfway point, Roy. How are we doing? This one is a wee bit like the Speyburn. It's apparently going to disappear in some markets. Like the Speyburn, by the time I got to Speyburn, it'd been out there for a long time. But I'm also late to this bottle. I've only been talking about this one for the last year or two. But I'm probably 3 bottles in, and when this disappears, I'll be seeking another. It's going to be harder to get in the UK if it's true about it disappearing. I hope that it's not the case, because this is a classic. And there is another bottle in the lineup in the Permashelf tonight that is so close to this in so many aspects that at some point, probably in a wee quiet moment, I'm going to do a head-to-head between the two and decide which one's my favourite. From memory, it would be tough to pick out, but I'm going to give this one possibly the nudge. If you were to fight me right now and say you can only take one, I think it would be this bottle between this and its Speyside neighbour that's going to appear a wee bit later. This is Dewar's Aultmore 12-year-old, famously called the Foggy Moss. 46% ABV, classic. It's a Speysider, but I'm going to say in style, just a classic Highland Scotch malt whiskey. Beautiful liquid, beautiful liquid, beautiful liquid. I had Aultmore 12 in the past, and I'm going to let you decide whether it was at a time where I just wasn't appreciating how good it was back then. I'm going back to maybe 2017, 2016. But I didn't pick up another bottle. It was not a Permashelf pickup. So you can decide whether that's because I missed it and I didn't realise how good it was, or I suspect the reason is this 12-year-old has got better over time, batch by batch. Because this is just one of the, it's viscous, it's creamy, it's malty, it's fruity, it's decadent, it's easy to sip and not really pay too much attention. But if you want to dive in and do your analytical thing, there's complexity and body and weight in here. Even when it's down at 46% ABV, it's about £55 in the UK. This bottle I picked up direct from Dewar's. It was the only place that had it in stock and easy to get hold of at the time. I know that because of how quickly I've got down to here, talking about sharing, enjoying this myself, that as this gets low, I'll be on the lookout for another one. Should have been talking about this a lot more over the years. Should have got to it earlier. Should have been in previous Permashelfs, and it wasn't. And again, I'll continue with the theme. I apologise for that. Every single bottle I've shared with you up to now at the halfway point has been a brand new entry into this year's Permashelf because I've refined the way I'm looking at it. I am sharing with you my take on what the Permashelf is, instead of what I've done in the past, which are a wee bit clumsy, and that's me trying to be mindful of availability, mindful of price, mindful of being inclusive of as many whiskey regions, as many whiskey styles as I possibly could. In the past, you've seen me include blends and blended malts. In the past, you've maybe saw me try to at least make an effort to make sure there's something from all the regions. That's gone out the window tonight. The Permashelf is a concept for a very specific reason. If you get close to the end of a bottle, it's a bottle that you become anxious about and say, I've really loved that. I would love to have another. I'm going to make sure that I've got another available. But it also has to be recognizable, widely available, accessible, affordable, and it has to be a core range. And you'll notice a theme tonight as well. I'm not going to hold out for an age statement, but it has to be natural whiskey. So a lot of the things that have appeared in the past have disappeared. That was easy decision for me to make. If it's not natural, it's not in my Permashelf. What do I mean by natural? Nothing has been taken away and nothing has been added. We understand that barrel char and things have to be filtered out of whiskey. Every whiskey that you drink has been filtered. Even Blackadder raw cask has been filtered. That's added later, those wee flakes. Chill filtration is aggressive. Chill filtrate, it's not a toggle on and off. It's not black and white. It's not either is or it isn't. Okay, there's different temperatures, different density to the filtration equipment, the membranes, different pressures, different ambient temperatures, everything. It doesn't matter. But if you alter the temperature of the liquid and force it through chill filtration equipment with a view to taking out some of the compounds that causes cloudiness or haze in whiskey, or flocculation, it's occasionally called, then you are chill filtering. And we know that while we might not be able to tell one or the other in our glasses, over time, we know that the whiskies that we fall in love with, the whiskies that are good time and time and time again, are natural whiskies that have not been chill filtered. And by natural, I'm also talking about whiskey that has not had, let me see if it's still here. Yeah, it's always here. This horrible gunk added to it. Now you see, this is actually a clear bottle. This is not a brown bottle. This is clear. If you look at the bottom, you can see that it's clear glass. And you can see a line here, and it's darker on this side than it is on this side. And that is because occasionally I'll do this with the bottle and I'll tip it up. And this, it'll take its time to get down there, but it'll eventually level out a bit here. And what we're seeing here is that this spirit, simple caramel, spirit caramel, E150A, this is what they add to whiskey to adjust the colour of it. Why? Because they say that it needs to be kept consistent, because they say that ever since that they changed the legislation in the 80s about Paxaret or Pacharet, the way that they used to condition cask to get colour in the cask and all of these other things, this deceit, they need this to keep the product consistent, dark sales. But we can see how over-adding this stuff can really bring on deceit. And that's what happens in whiskey, unfortunately. Unless the producer, like Springbank, has a blanket policy of never having colour. And I have to say, Glengoyne and Macallan and various other brands out there are the same. We know that it's natural colour. A lot of producers, like this Speyburn here, like that Benromach that's behind me, take the time and have the confidence to put on the bottle natural colour. And out of all the things that makes whiskey natural, it's become the thing that's most important to me in 2025. Because in whiskey, they can put colour in it then that and not declare how much they've used. They don't even need to declare that they've added it in most of the markets around the world. In Europe, some markets such as Germany, they have to declare it. Mit Farbstoff, I think is, forgive me all my German friends that are in, I think that's what it says, with colourant. They have to declare it, but it's not the case in the UK, and I think it's horrendous. That being said, the rest of tonight will not have anything other than natural whiskies, and everything that's on the shelf behind me right now, Aultmore, Benromach, Speyburn, Springbank, Kilkerran, you can guarantee they're all fully natural. Inadvertently, it seems like the only whiskey on my Permashelf list that isn't natural is Craigellachie 14, the one I named a natural alternative for. It could be natural, that's the trouble. That's 46% ABV. I suspect it is chill filtered, of course. And being Diageo, I also suspect that they colour it for consistency like they do with, excuse me. Just have a wee clear out and put the mic on mute. I suspect that it is chill filtered and coloured, but it doesn't need to be. They are still in the mindset of when malt whiskey first became a thing, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, when a lot of it was produced and developed on the back of competing for and with the blend market, which was 40% ABV, consistent time and time and time and time again. They tried to crowbar, and they did crowbar malt into being the same thing as the blends had traditionally been in the past. I don't have a Permashelf yet, but a young Caol Ila always needs to be there, I think. It's vital grease in my whiskey system. So put yourself in my position, Arnie, and which young Caol Ila would you pick? I would probably go somewhere along the lines of a Port Ascot 8-year-old. That would be good, and it's very often young Caol Ila. It's not in the lineup tonight, though, buddy. Hoyt is saying, Alan Gray is saying, watching and enjoying Ralphie's recent Kilkerran bottling. It was up here. It's been up here in the past, but a wee rejig has meant that a lot of my Ralphie bottlings went to a different cabinet through in the other room. But yeah, you're different from me. Yours is open, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's fantastic. Thanks, Alan Gray, for being a member of the Barflies for 39 months. Thanks for your support, buddy. Cheers. Brian Cabayas is celebrating being a member for 30 months in morning tea at work. Klein Leash is still okay as a Permashelf. Good for you. I have to argue it's maybe one of my Permashelf, but we can only have 10. The shelf only holds 10, right, Brian? Danny Keenan, my pal, been a member for 24 months of the Barflies, 2 years of whiskey fun with the best people. I agree with that. Let's raise a glass to that, Danny. Thank you so much, buddy. Richard Westby's signed up as being a member of Aquavita Barflies too. Thank you so much, Richard. First time I've welcomed you in. Thank you for being a member of the Barflies and supporting me. And Graham Walt from Sweden, member for 58 months. 58 months, that's nearly 5 years. Much love. James, much love right back at you. Thank you. The vPub is a very kind of transient thing. There's going to be a lot of churn. Some people come in and love it and stay for a while, and then they find other things to distract them. And then they come back again, enjoy it for a while, and leave. But other people are here consistently from the start for a long time. Some of you are much, much newer and fresher and everything. I love all of it. But I have to say there's something a wee bit reassuring about somebody that's able to endure me for 5 years. Have I lost connection? YouTube has just flaked out on me. I'll see if I can refresh this. Hopefully it's okay. Yep. It looks like it was just YouTube that happened with, but it wiped out everything. Everything okay with you? I'll try and bring the chat back to make sure it's okay. Yep, Sachin is saying it's Sachin Kent. Good to see Sachin. He's saying a Permashelf bottle for me is the Elijah Craig barrel proof. Yeah, I think it was just at my side, but my YouTube, it's not the first time it's happened, but just completely went blank, and I had that wee ugly face thing saying I couldn't unload the page. Let's get this back to where we were. I've got the chat back up again. It's looking all good. Clicks to saying all good here, still here, all good. Okay. Weird. Okay. Fantastic. Let's move on to bottle 6 and the last of the new entries for the 2025 Permashelf. Okay, let's admit to you what it is. And come on, you've guessed it. You've guessed it. How could I select a bottle of the year and it not to be in the Permashelf? Here's my whiskey of the year. And it doesn't appear on the Permashelf. It's just, this is why I had to change my angle on this. I had to change what I was thinking about. James is saying that all started with the twice a week vPubs during lockdown. Feels like another life. It really does, James, doesn't it? Crazy that it was so long ago already. I know. I have confessed in the past, but I'll confess again. There's a wee bit of nostalgia for those days. It was a terrible time. It's going to scar our lives forever in so many ways. But it taught us about certain aspects of life, I suspect, that we've hopefully been able to hold on to. It's nice to have you through that, James. Hoyt is saying only 5 years, but feels like it's always been here. Well, the vPub has been here since 2017. So I suppose later this year we'll celebrate 8 years. That's something. Hellswood is saying our Permashelf whiskies are great, but the Permashelf friendships this community has given us are priceless. Helen, I love you. That's nice words. Thank you for being here always and for being so mindful of what we have. Jean Kelly is saying, no interruption here. Good. Duraldram, Talister, Churning Tide. So I think it's just my side. Talister, Churning Tide, yes. Okay, we won't go into the Talisker. Let's be polite and call it playfulness. Whiskey Weekend Drama is saying give a great slancher for our Gregor Deichmann, his birthday. Wow, Gregor. Now, Gregor is often in live. More often than not, he's picking it up on the replay. But regardless, if this is Gregor's birthday, I'll raise a wee dram to Gregor and say, Gregor Deichmann, many happy returns, my friend. Happy birthday. Cheers. Dram 6, which means I get to pour another wee dram. You've already guessed what this is. My whiskey of the year for 2025. I think I'll go as far to say the best inaugural that's ever been released from them. Recently picked up a special bottling, an exclusive bottling, a society bottling from them. It wasn't too expensive. I think it was £75 or something like that. Also in love with it. Very sherry forward. But this is not. This is their cleanest, most kind of probably close to not just their in-house style, but probably closest to what they're going to be able to consistently output. So the problem that this whiskey had was the inaugural was so good, it shocked people how good it was at 5 years old. And we know that it's not overaged. There's not a lot of older stuff in there. It could only really be 5 years old. Wonderful stuff to come out from these guys in the future. But of course, I'm speaking about Isla's Ardnahoe, owned by Hunter Lang over in Isla. The Infinite Loch is their non-age statement, core range release. And this is critical. This is critical to any strategy, not just for casual whiskey drinkers, not for geeks, but for both and everything in between. You need an anchor. You need a good, rock solid, reliable, always there, always talked about, always picked up, purchased, repurchased, permashelf potential. You need a good anchor. You need a core release product. So the inaugural lit up the heather for everyone. These exclusive releases that are coming along, everything I've tasted from Ardnahoe is exciting. So it means the wee core range has got a lot of work to do, and it's kind of hard to do. Imagine this like a defender, a central defender, or a sweeper, or a defensively minded midfielder, or somebody that just, they don't get a lot of the highlights, they don't get a lot of the coverage, they don't get a lot of the excitement, but they just quietly do what they always do, and you just know that whenever they're in charge, they're just going to take care of it. They're just going to do it. You don't need to worry. That's the Infinite Loch. If you doubt me, pick up a wee glass of Infinite Loch and sip it against anything from the same island, Isla. This is a very peaty product. Don't let people tell you this is lightly peated. This is peaty and potent and powerful. There's lots of smoke on this. It's much more reminiscent of a South Coast Isla than it is away up it's located away up in the northeast. For £50 to £60, which is the price point that this parade's in, what else can you have? You are in very, very, very solid ground and good company before you get to a point where you've got real competition at that price point. It might not be as good as the inaugural. It might not be as good as these exclusive bottlings that are coming out, but you don't judge it against those things. That's the mistake I was making. You judge it against its peers that are on the shelf. This is a core range product. %50 ABV. Peaty and slightly sweet. A wee bit of soot and ash in there, just a whiff. But overall, I don't think I would go to soot and ash to describe it, certainly not now. It's halfway down the bottle. There's a kind of warmth to the smoke here, an earthiness, a fireside warmth. Bags of fruit and bags of that style that I've come to associate with Ardnahoe. Its finish is fantastic. And that is the kind of fermentation room, the bready notes, the ripe fruit, things that you get from when you're standing in amongst all the washbacks. Somebody pops open a washback, whatever it is. When you walk first into that fermentation room, you get all of these kind of ripe, fruity, bready notes. This is the only bottle that I have. I don't have another full bottle yet. I did have one, but I gifted it to a pal, and I hope he's enjoying it too. But I will go out and replace it and make sure that there's another one, especially if this one gets a bit low. And it's going to be interesting to see how things go batch by batch, by how the product develops. What I would love to see from Ardnahoe, to mash in a couple of things I've spoken about tonight, I'd love to see something from them. Fully ex-bourbon. Refill, don't care. First fill, don't care. All ex-bourbon, all American oak, your spirit shining. That's what I desire. But your core range is a cracker. People need to not compare it to your inaugural. They need to compare it to its peers. Joe Smith is in. Ardnahoe is a CCV. He's saying solid. Think I know what CCV stands for, Joe? Centre back. Jean Kelly is saying, when I was on Isla, I took your advice and picked up Ardnahoe's 5-year-old, and I'm so glad I did. You just shouldn't be. But I've not met. Whiskey is a divisive thing. It's a subjective. It's all opinions and things. I've not met anyone that's tasted Isla's Ardnahoe and said nah. Especially when most of them are speaking about that inaugural. I should contextualise it. Park Aldenby is in the Infinite Loch. Very glad to see it mentioned as part of your Permashelf Aquavitae. Per Caldenby. He's been on the vPub, won a fantastic vPub, fascinating vPub last year. But he's good. He's obviously in charge of Schmogen Distillery out there in Sweden. It's nice to see you in, Per. But he's also active with the folks at Hunter Lane, and he's also got his active, I suspect, then with selections such as the inaugural and the exclusives in the Infinite Loch. It's wonderful to have you in. A wee bird tells me that you might be in Scotland these coming days, or right now, actually, potentially. Brian, it's good to see you in, buddy. Brian Cabayas is saying, I've got a sample of Ardnahoe inaugural from Ian Bruce. Almost a perfect whiskey. Ian is such a gent. Fantastic. Wonderful that you're enjoying it as well. Ardnahoe inaugural, it was still available for sale the last time I checked. And I was so tempted to go for it. Maybe I should have, because I suspect it will be one of those things that I miss. Hoyt is saying, I misunderstood. I knew we met you before 2020. Yeah, Hoyt. I wonder when that was. We were in Glasgow together, right? 2018, 2019. Yeah, gone back a wee while now, buddy. Eh? Per is saying, listening and much liking entirely ex-bourbon matured. But bully them into bringing it. Where is it? I never forget what I tasted in that warehouse over there on Isla, and it was just glorious. It was straight from bourbon cask. Pete Head is saying the Fischel release from Ardnahoe was fully bourbon matured. I know, but I didn't get it, Frank. Maybe you did. I bet you was only one bottle per. Maybe I have to go to secondary for it. But there's other ways of doing these things, right? Oderte is saying, finished my inaugural Ardnahoe, should have bought a second. This is this is what we're hearing. At a hotel nearby. Fantastic, Per. Fantastic, nearby me. Anthony saying, lockdown was the turning point in my whiskey journey. I installed my first Permashelf bottle around then. Need to dust it down and replenish. Springbank 10 and Benromach Cask Strength are firm favourites, right? So I've covered all of these 6 bottles are all new entries into this year's Permashelf because I've focused on what the concept of a Permashelf should actually be, and I've stopped with the old kind of trying to be inclusive as possible stuff. Let's move on to what survived from the previous years. Throw it in the chat if you want. What are you mindful of me missing based on concepts like ex-bourbon matured, for example, core range products, good value, continued good availability, a producer that has not done anything at the core range entry-level price point to take the mickey, to gouge, to play with things, to just keep the integrity, honesty, authenticity going. It's getting uncorked tonight as well, because it is a Permashelf. The dregs were cleaned off at New Year, and this is a Southern Highlander from a distillery that I can consistently say, or that I can say consistently, has been supported on this channel since 2017 when we first started. This is Deanston. This is Deanston's 12-year-old. Now, I could have picked the 18-year-old. I absolutely could have. Fantastic value. In the UK, we often see it at below £70. It's underselling it a wee bit in the current market. In the current market, I hope that they still make profit at that point. But it's usually about £80, £85. Similar price point to Speyburn's 18-year-old, which is, again, fantastic value. Nothing more. If you're into kind of having a bit of decadence on the shelf, pick up a Speyburn 18, sherry. Pick up a Deanston 18, bourbon. You've got 2 ends of the bandwidth there, round about £75, £80 each. Fully natural whiskies, both of them gorgeous. Anyway, it's a 12-year-old that makes the lineup tonight. Why? Well, Deanston 12 does not say natural whiskey on the natural colour on the label. Naughty Deanston. But if you ever find yourself with a shelf of Deanston 12s in a retailer or something, there's a good chance that there might be different batches on that shelf. Pick them up and look at them alongside each other and marvel at the colour differences between two identical bottles on the shelf. Different batches. They're not colouring for consistency. They're embracing the fact that it's malt whiskey matured in small casks, typically 200-litre casks. Legislation says it can't be any more than 700 litres, but forget that. We're talking about the 12-year-old, which is, we believe, almost all ex-bourbon matured. Certainly that's the profile, that's the style. I suspect they put a wee bit of sherry in this from time to time, but it's very much the style. The colour is the colour. It's going to be what it wants to be. It's a batch-made product that's matured in those tiny little 200-litre casks. Let it be what it wants to be. Don't force it. Don't crowbar it. Oh, you're getting cloudy. Okay, you've dropped my ABV. Okay, we'll keep your ABV up. Okay. Oh, you want to be a different colour this time? Be a different colour this time. Be whatever you want to be. That's because you're choosing to make something from malted barley. That's what it's going to be. Deanston have embraced that. We're not shouting about it enough. We're not stepping up and replacing our bottles and saying, love this stuff, love where it's come from, love the foundation of it. 15 years now, we've been enjoying natural product from Burn Stewart, Distell, now owned by CVH. Don't care who the owners are, just preserve this consistency. Because this is a brand that's gone from nobody caring about it, a wee bit like a Loch, a wee bit like so many other brands out there that have become Renaissance brands. Nobody really cared about Deanston. And now it's absolutely Permashelf. And it's been consistently on my Permashelf in 2022, 2024, and now. But I'll tell you, it's been on my Permashelf from potentially the first time I actually sat down and worked out how good Deanston 12 was. This is an uncorked bottle. Let's see if this can hold up. It has to now, right? Waxed apples. Waxy apples. So we've got apple, we've got an orchard fruit vibe here going on. It's kind of cool to the nose. That's what I'm smelling. That's what I'm nosing, a waxed apple. A wee bit floral, a wee bit like a it's not fresh flowers, it's not green stalks, it's not all of that stuff. It's more of a kind of like a spritz or a what's it called, a vaporizer, maybe like you've walked into a florist, or maybe it's a potpourri type thing, but you get the vibe. You know what I'm leaning towards. And then on the palate, wow, toffee caramel, sweetness, Werther's Originals, butterscotch, all the orchard fruit, but sweet, quite ripe, soft, ripe pear. £40. We've spent a few years complaining about a lot of things, a lot of dynamics in whiskey in the marketplace and stuff. I think I need to remember just to celebrate that this thing is like, it's just soldiered on. It's just done exactly what you want it to do time and time and time again. If I think of the Dramface scoring system, 5 out of 10 is a good whiskey, 6 out of 10 is better, 7 out of 10 is very good indeed. Literally, that's how they describe it in Dramface, very good indeed. It's difficult to elevate Deanston out of that band Score brand, right? It's a 40 quid whiskey. It's a 12-year-old malt Scotch whiskey. But me sipping that tonight and understanding how good a whiskey that is, it's almost like it deserves kudos. It deserves bonus points. It deserves extra for being that good for that long, that consistent, regardless of how inconsistent the colour is. The quality has never let us down. Amazing to see. Deanston 12 never disappoints, says Jean Kelly. The other bottlings are superb too. We agree. Anthony's saying, how about the classic laddie? Is that a Permashelf? Not this time. And here's the thing. There's Ardbeg, there's Loch Lomond, there's Bruichladdich. There are brands and producers and distilleries out there that absolutely would be a Permashelf, and I'm always going to have something on the shelf from them. Would I pick the classic, or would I go for a beer barley? Would I go for an organic release? Would I go for one or the other? You know, it's what I have to do, and what you'll notice the theme is tonight, Anth. I have absolutely focused on core range. So if you ask me to look at Bruichladdich through that lens, that's their classic laddie. So I'll ask you to look at the lineup tonight, and you might be able to pick out an easy one that you would switch out with classic laddie. For me, I've chosen not to include it. It's not a spoiler because I've given you all the new ones. 2022 didn't have the classic laddie, 2024 didn't. And Bruichladdich hasn't made it in this time either. But that's not to say it's not a Permashelf bottle for me. Remember, I've restricted this shelf to holding 10 bottles. Duration of a vPub, a reasonable amount of whiskey for somebody to have at home, beginner's collection, all of those perspectives. More than anything, though, I've had to force myself to make tough decisions, and it's a hard thing to do. I expect you replace one of mine with a Bruichladdich Classic Laddie, and I would celebrate you for doing it. Clutch to say, and I have to take care of our sick one tomorrow, so way past my bedtime. Having too much fun here. Good night, everyone, and catch the rest on replay. I'm sorry to hear that you've got a poorly one in the house, buddy. A young one in the house that's poorly. I hope that they're better now, and welcome back now that you're here on the replay. Cheers, Clutch. Overland Drams, that's Chuck that's in. Good to see you, Chuck. We've been talking about Dramface all night tonight, but Chuck's part of Dramface. He looks after the social medias for it. And it's nice to see you in tonight, buddy. He's saying that Aquavita's got good taste. Crawley Bumlick. Drew from Arizona is saying the Deanston Chronicles will probably be a Permashelf for me because I don't want to. I wonder what, Chuck, what were you mentioning there when I said the good taste? Were you talking about the Bruichladdich? Were you talking about the Deanston? Because I noticed that Chuck is the type of attitude and perspective that's fun to harness. He's been in a few years now, but he's still, because of the location where he is, the stuff that he's coming to, the choice that he has, because he's in Colorado in the US, his availability is remarkably different. So it's interesting to hear where he is and what he's enjoying and what would be his Permashelf picks. Sorry, Drew. He's saying the Deanston Chronicles was probably a Permashelf for me because I don't want to open it after my distillery visit with Cousin Kev. So that will be a literal Permashelf, right? Something that can be replaced. Drew, it's nice to have you in, buddy. And when we talk about Cousin Kevin, it's my cousin Kevin Grant on Whiskey on YouTube. Jean Kelly is saying, can't include Classic Laddie, but I'd certainly go for Beer Barley or Isla Barley. So that's what I was kind of leaning towards, Jean. I would be torn. It would be tough for me to make I love the texture, especially the Beer Barley. I just love that oiliness, that thick. You lick it off your teeth for 10 minutes later. Or if I can pick up Springbank, says Jimmy Legg, local barley, they'd be in all 10 of my Permashelf picks. Yeah, do you know what? Springbank local barley is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous liquid. There's no way if you had 10 slots and 10 available that you could put 10 different local barleys. There's no way, Jimmy, that you would make them all local barleys. It's a bit dull. Even if you were a diehard fan, maybe more than half of them local barleys, but you'd still want the variation there. Not even local barley covers the spectrum, you know. Overland Chuck is saying, Colorado, send you warm greetings as always. Thank you, buddy. And Doodle Drama is saying, Deanston is one that I've not tried at all yet. Is there a cask strength version you'd recommend? Yes, there's a Deanston Virgin Oak cask strength. It's an official release now. If you're in that vibe where you're asking specifically for cask strength stuff, if that's what you're after, Deanston Virgin Oak cask strength is pretty good, but it's pretty intense and very heavy on the oak, of course, very sweet. But consider a wee delicate touch of Deanston. Plenty that you can pick up at a bar, Bonaccord, Pot Still, whenever you're in town. There's plenty of Deanston around that you can pick up and try inexpensively too. Jean is saying, I hope that Aaron 10 makes a Permashelf Aqua Vitae. And Dominic Fife is saying, let's hear it for Lowland Permashelf. Kingsbarns Ducat is a lovely Fife liquid. Dominic Fife and Jean Kelly both hitting a nail on the head here. It's fantastic. You help me with this flow. It's wonderful. Aaron didn't make the 2022. Aaron didn't make the 2024. And because it's repeats here tonight, you know that Aaron's not going to make the 2025. And I apologised for no Aaron. In fact, there's a segment in the original Permashelf video where I talk about no Aaron. It's a little bit like when I was talking about the Bruichladdich and the Ardbegs and the Loch Lomans and the other brands out there that they're always going to be there. But the Aaron 10 is the core range. That's the most accessible. That's the one I'm looking at. I'm thinking, okay, so Aaron 10, Aaron 18, it's a bit fickle up and down there. It's a bit kind of price. One year it went shot up in price. It was only a 17-year-old based on stock availability and all of that. We understand. So it's difficult for me to go and push to £140 I've seen it at. It's too expensive. So Aaron 10 we're left with, and I'm looking at Aaron 10, and I love the stuff. And I'll confess, it's a Permashelf here. Aaron 10 will always be in the vPub. Of course it will be. But I have to pick my vPub Permashelf 10 picks based on what the parameters that I've put in place to force me to decide. And just like Bruichladdich Classic Laddie, Aaron 10 didn't make it. Didn't make it. Lowland, Ducat, love. Dream to Dram, loved. Kingsbarns getting better all the time. Fantastic liquid. Delicious liquid. I hope it continues to get better. Clydeside recently, that especially that Napier with that just very straightforward, sweet and easy sherry, 54 quid. Why are we complaining? Wonderful ABV, fully natural whiskey. Lots of stuff of interest coming out the Lowlands before we even talk about the Renaissance, the explosion onto the whiskey exciter radar that Glasgow has been. Glasgow Distillery, 1770. There's lots. But just like there is no sherry bomb in the Permashelf, the closest is that Speyburn 15, which is sherried, but you wouldn't call it a sherry bomb. There is no Lowland pick this time around. It just is what it is. It's not because there isn't amazing Lowland things happening, because there is. There will be lots of vPubs in the future where I can talk about all of these concepts. Sherry bombs, Lowland, new stuff, or almost close to Permashelf picks, such as Bruichladdich, Ardbeg, Loch Lomond, and so many more. Aaron, tonight we've got whatever those 10 bottles were. I froze it and stuck to it, and I'm just sitting here telling you what those 10 bottles are. Okay. The next one, you're going to say to me, Roy, that's awful close to the Deanston 12. It's very close to the Deanston 12. Surely it would have been easy for you to delete one of those and find space for something else, a Lowlander, an Aaron, a Bruichladdich. Right up until you sit them next to each other, and they are nothing alike. They may be on paper. 46.3 for the Deanston, 46 for this one. 12 years for the Deanston, 10 years for this one. Southern Highlander, Eastern Highlander, Southern Eastern Highlander for this one. You know what it is, don't you? It was there in 2022, 2024, and it's still there in 2025. This is unique. This whiskey is unique. Now, this is bottle number 8, so what did I pour? I should be able to pour another dram by now. Oh no, of course, but I started with a dram, so I can't. I would be pouring one. What am I going to have? I've got an uncorking to do, so I need to keep a clean glass for the uncorking. This is bright and fresh and elegant and fragrant And just, it's difficult to get across how good, how flavourful Scotch malt whisky can be at 10 years old until you sit down and share a Glencadam 10 with somebody. On the labelling, the way this looks to everything about this suggests entry-level whisky. It is not entry-level. It's complex. It's got depth. It's got layers. It's got a desserty sweet note. It's got a grassy note. It's got a biscuity note. It's got a malty note. It's got so many things to explore. Not a whiff of smoke, but more than anything, it tells us on the label, front and centre, I am natural whisky, unchill, filtered, no added colouring. 46% ABV, available everywhere. It's been on the Permashelf consistently for 3 years in a row now. 3 Permashelfs in a row, 2022, 2024, 2025. It wasn't intended to be an annual thing, but of course I've explained why it is now. I've got 2 left. One's an uncorking, but it's a Permashelf bottle. It's something that I've sipped many times. All it needs to be is a wee bit like the Deanston 12 Open, just as good as the stuff in the past. And the other one is just so obvious, and it's already been mentioned by some of you guys tonight. Christoph is saying, I like the concept of the Permashelf. I only have a theoretical one, though. Despite 4 years in whisky, I've not tried enough different ones yet to restrict my total collection. And that's fantastic, Christoph. So what we're saying with the Permashelf here is that I don't want to dictate to anyone. And all I want to do is say, this is where I am at. And I think it represents a really good lineup of whiskies, of available core range products, all natural tonight, that anybody could step in and explore. So as part of your exploration, if there's anything here that you haven't tried yet, I am standing up and vouching for. It's a good way to introduce my next bottle. Tim is saying, Glencadam 15 for me. Okay, going for a wee bit more age. Interestingly, actually, a lighter colour, the Glencadam 15. A wee bit more refill in there, but a bit more age. Love the concept, Tim. Very rare thing out there. I'm glad you're loving it as much as I am. Sachin Kent is saying, I think my nose is broken. I get hardly anything from Glencadam 10. Oh my goodness. Your nose is not broken. You don't need to get everything that I'm getting. Nobody needs to step up and agree. But this is, Glencadam 10 for me has been a consistent thing on the vPub for 5 or 6 years now. Lovely whiskey. And it is an emotional thing for me now. If Glencadam 10 starts to get a bit close to the bottom, at £40 especially, it's maybe 42 now. When I first started evangelising about Glencadam 10, it was 30 quid. It's a wee bit dearer, but still, £42 for all natural 10-year-old malt whiskey from the Highlands. Fantastic. Dave Shaw's bought me a dram to say, really pleased to see the Aultmore 12 on the table. A great whiskey for Australia's summer months. Cheers, Roy, and a belated Happy New Year to all. Dave, wonderful to have you in, buddy. Very Happy New Year right back at you. Obviously, it's difficult for us to get our head around the fact that you're sipping it in the middle of summer right now, but of course, yeah. And I think Glencadam 10 would also be a cracker for such conditions. Cheers. Right, 2 more to go. I'm going to do the uncorking last. So let me get the obvious one out of the way first. There are about 3 or 4 distilleries, and this is a subject for a potential future vPub. But I think it would become a wee bit repetitive and samey, so I've not gone with it yet. But there's about 3 or 4 distilleries, maybe 5, that I have a ridiculous selection from those distilleries. So the vPub theme would obviously be favourite distilleries, but not favourite as in if somebody asks you what's your favourite distillery, you go Clynelish or Springbank, or you go somewhere, maybe an Islay distillery, maybe one of the classics like a Longmorn or a, you know, there are things that you say that people go, oh, and they nod sagely in agreement and say, yeah, good pick. But there are distilleries that are your favourite because you buy them and buy more of them and buy a whole range of them and do a bottle count of what you have for those of you that have collections and look at the distilleries or producers or brands where you have lots of the same. We are human, and it's part of our makeup to do it. I have 4, 5, 6 distilleries that happens with, and this is one of them. You know what it is. This is Ardnamurchan's core range product, the AD. I actually wish that this is the one I was pouring for my last dram tonight, but I'll save it for the uncorking at the end. I'll maybe pour one of these at the weekend. There's another AD up there. They still batch this. There is a batch number on the back, but it's harder to see. It's round the back and much smaller number. You just walk in. They're going for consistency now. So if you just walk in and you see an Ardnamurchan AD on the shelf, this has replaced the confusing numbers that used to exist based on year, based on batch or release number in that year, consecutive number. 46.8% ABV. Non-chill filtered. Non-chill filtered, natural colour on the label. No age statement on this, but yes, there is, because if you give the wee QR code on the back a scan, it will not only just tell you the ages of the whiskies, it'll tell you what barrels they came from, it'll tell you the temperatures, it'll tell you the bottlers' names, it'll tell you everything that you need to know, and lots of things that you don't really need to know as well. Transparency is the key element here. Fantastic stuff. It will always be on my shelf. We've started to become a wee bit aware of just how much we're talking about Ardnamurchan. And I have started to sense that we are maybe holding back and talking a wee bit less about Ardnamurchan now, because, okay, everybody knows about Ardnamurchan. Why do you keep saying the same thing over and over again? If we don't celebrate what we love, a bit like this Deanston, a bit like the Glencadam, if we don't celebrate the people that stepped up to make it natural, so I'm talking about the people, the team at Glencadam, the people at Angus Dundee that chose to put natural products out there when their traditional market was the old 40% Tom and Tells, right? I'm talking about heroes like Ian McMillan at Burnstewart back in the day that, not just for a Deanston 12, but for the entire range, Tobermory, Lechic, Bunnahabhain and Deanston, stood up and got everybody to put natural whiskey out there. The team at Adelphi that had been doing natural cask strength whiskey as independent bottlers for years, as soon as they step up with their new distillery, Ardnamurchan natural whiskey comes out, and they have put very few steps wrong across their journey. Whatever they decide to do has been fantastic. We need to keep this in the zeitgeist, keep it in the discourse, keep it at the top of the conversation. Why? Because they are not only just doing it right for themselves, but they are also being torchbearers for the rest of the industry. Ardnamurchan is a Permashelf bottle. I've got one more to go. And not only have you seen it before on the vPub, but you've seen it in the Permashelf list in 2022. You've seen it in the Permashelf list in 2024. I'm going to give you a clue and tell you that it's a Speyside. Can you guess what it is? I'll uncork it tonight. Yes, Ardnamurchan can never disappear from our shelves. This is the future of single malt, says Gene Kelly. And I know a lot of people say, yeah, echo chamber, echo chamber. No, just as many of you have brought these whiskies to me over the years. It's not an echo chamber. It's a bi-directional feedback loop. It's different. And I welcome anybody to come in with their own opinions, whether it agrees with mine or not, especially when it doesn't agree with mine. Put your own list underneath in the comments, share it with everyone. Let people know that you're having real experiences with this, because we're all just spending our own money. We're all completely independently minded, no ulterior motives, just the stuff we love. That's what makes it a Permashelf pick. Christoph is saying, for that Permashelf concept is great. And it actually reminded me how long ago my last Deanston 12 was. Too long, maybe. I tell you, just have a wee sip, have a wee toot on it. David Brave is saying, getting nervous for Craigellachie 13. David Brave, oh my goodness. Gene Kelly's, I picked up that one, didn't I? Graham Fraser is saying, just realised I have one Permashelf without realising it. Daffmill. So Graham Fraser is suggesting that he can't run out of Daffmill, but he has to have a backup bottle there, which is tough for Graham because it's one of the hardest ones to find a backup for. Unless you're Graham Fraser, I suspect that he's got ways out. I've always been at the right place at the right moment. I've never agreed with a single thing that you've ever said, Aquavite, says Jimmy Legg. That's why he's here, and that's why his opinion is important. But you and I both know that Jimmy and I often agree on lots of things. Let's never admit it, though. Sam is saying Ballandalach. I'm talking about core range. All of the things, Sam, have to have a core range. It has to have something that not just we can get in Scotland or the UK or even Northern Europe or Western Europe or wherever, but it has to be something that most people can recognise and identify with. And it's got that anchor, it's got that thing, that reliable, this is what we're about. All of these are that. Springbank's 10, Kilkerran 12, Speyburn's 15. Sorry, I'm not putting forward the 10-year-old. I'll refer you to Dramface's article today. They were reviewing two 10-year-olds against each other. Fantastic read if you want to go back and have a read at that. It's very close to tonight's subject. Benromach's 10 cask strength. It's not core range, but it's always available. Aultmore 12 is. Infinite Loch is exactly the core. It's exactly the topic, the concept I'm talking about. And again, Deanston, Glencadam, and Ardnamurchan. These are all anchors in the range, hard anchors of product that people can get a hold of. Ballindalach have yet to establish that product yet. They may do it, and I hope they do, but their pricing has to change. They're asking too much money for a lot of their products right now. Javon is celebrating being a member for 44 months of the Barflies. Have rewind and watch from the start, but cheers all. Thank you. So now that you've caught up, Javon, it's nice to have you back again. It's a wee bit later. I'm in bed now, hopefully sleeping and resting well, but it's nice to have you back watching from the very beginning. Thanks for being a Barfly for 44 months, Javon. Cheers. And Bruce Bernard is saying, is it built on a rocky bluff? Nope. Whiskey with Molly Ben is insane, even in all aquavita, been half listening in the background. There's loads of work to catch up on after 2 days in Birmingham. Petition signed. Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. So the people that don't realise what the perma link is here, the link at the top of the chat, hopefully I've been good enough to put it in the link under the description, the video description underneath. But if I haven't, you go to the Dramface article for today, which is the Speyburn 10 versus Speyburn 10, non-chill filtered against chill filtered review. There's a petition link there and all the context and everything that you need for that. Thank you for signing. Thank you for considering signing. Final bottle to go, then we'll get into the quiz at the end. We have an uncorking here. Dave the Brave, worry not, my friend. Craigellachie 13. You know, it's got much darker over the years. It's got much darker, right? Can you see how much darker this has got? This is a good thing. Why is that a good thing? Because it tells us that they don't care that things are darker or lighter or whatever. Probably a bit more investment in casks and, you know, newer casks, more active casks have been purchased over the years, more recent years, and it ends up being that the product gets a wee bit darker. But the first few bottles of Craigellachie 13 I purchased back in the day, I think this was a relaunched brand in this livery about 2015. This has been out for about a decade now, I would guess, somewhere of that order. But it was lighter liquid than this, most definitely. It's no bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing. Oh, quite a soft pop there. We can do better than that, can't we? There we go. We should get a glug from this wee bottle as well. So there was only a wee drop of Craigellachie 13 in the bottle for a long, long time in the vPub. Eventually, I just had to do the decent thing and kill it off. But there was always going to be a backup bottle available. It's a Speyside whiskey. It joins another 3 in the Permashelf lineup tonight. 4 Speyside whiskies, which is really quite marvellous, right? We've got Aultmore, we've got Benromach, we've got Speyburn, and we've got Craigellachie. I noticed that with the exception of Aultmore, that actually Benromach, they don't have worm tubs either. But 2 of them have worm tubs. Speyburn and Craigellachie are both worm tub distilleries. So the theory goes that worm tubs are good for condensation because it can help with a wee bit more body. Oh my goodness. So this is a wee surprise, and it's on the back of the Deanston, I suspect. So there's much more. I did mention that the colour's a wee bit darker on this one. There's much more of a kind of sherry blast to this. Now, I'm familiar with the kind of wood, spice, and oak, sherry, autumnal notes from the 17-year-old Craigellachie, which is quite a bit more expensive, but this whiskey has grown up a bit. And I say that in a way just to make note of it. It's not to suggest it's got better or worse or anything else. From the last time I popped a fresh bottle of Craigellachie, this has got much more kind of spicy, warm, aromatic. The fruit here is kind of berries and cherries and kind of cooked in cooking fruits, cooking spice, wood spice. So the fresh apple orchard side of Craigellachie, the lighter side, the light white fruits and things, is just a memory now. Still gorgeous on the nose. No taint, no off notes, no sense of spiritiness or youth. Teenager, 13 years old. Wee bit of orchard still there. Wee bit of white fruit still there. It's coming. This is it says a neck pour, right? It's an uncorking. I'm not giving the whiskey no time to relax a bit. Wee bit of white melon, maybe. Honeydew. Let's go with a wee light nut note, a wee bit of hazelnutty type vibe. Cheers. Okay, on the palate, much more familiar. I suspect that tonight the contrast was between the Deanston and the clean toffee caramel butterscotch of the Deanston. Maybe highlighted a lot of the spice in this. But on the palate, it's very much that reassuring, lovely, almost silky Craigellachie texture. Silky, that's good. It's a good, reassuring thing. You know how hard it is for me to edit myself and put in the chapters and things and hear the things that I say after the fact. This is good whiskey. There's a wee bit of a cigar box here, a wee bit of cedarwood, a wee bit of kind of fresh sawn wood, like a sanding wood or something. Workshop. Not so much on the nose, but on the palate, there's just that oak spice, that sense of kind of you can get drawn into discussions about pencil case and wood shavings. In 2025, we are in a time that 10 years ago this didn't exist. We're living through a time that 10-year-old whiskey tastes 10-year-old or better. 12-year-old tastes 12-year-old or better. This 13-year-old tastes 13-year-old or better. I think the stocks have caught up. I think the established profile, what they're after, what they're trying to bring out, the consistency, the minimum bar of quality is absolutely solid. I think the stocks have caught up. This is well poised, well balanced. On the nose, I got quite a really much more sherry cask suggestion and things on the nose, but as it sits and it breathes a bit, it's settled right down to more my preference again. Lovely silky texture, lovely long finish, hanging around for a long time. Lots of body, lots of, if you want to sit and pour over this, you probably can. You could pick out, take a teaspoon of water, a wee water dropper or something, play with it if you want. But if you just want to take it and have a sofa pour, fantastic, satisfying. There's the word. Body, weight. There is a bit of savoury there. I suspect from sherry cask, wee lick of kind of European oak vibes, balancing the sweetness nicely. Deanston is a sweeter prospect than this. It's just, this will be legendary whiskey in the future. I hope this never, ever, ever is discontinued. And there we have the Permashelf. Kilkerran 12, Springbank 10, Speyburn 15, Benromach 10, Benromach Cask strength, Aultmore 12, Ardnahoe Infinite Loch, Deanston 12, Glencadam 10, Ardnamurchan AD, and Craigellachie 13. 4 Speyciders, 1 Islay, 3 Highland, 2 Campbelltown. Not one of them has any artificial colouring added whatsoever. They are all non-chill filtered, fully natural whiskies. The most expensive in the lineup here, depending on what you would pay, would either be the Speyburn or the Cask Strength Benromach. £65, something of that order. Your mileage may vary. Most of it is in the orbit of £50. Some of it is down at £40. Some of it is a wee bit closer to 60. What I can say, hand on heart, is that every single bottle I've shared with you tonight that makes up this 2025 Permashelf, I have genuine anxiety when it gets to the bottom. I will be replacing it. I need these. And I don't just need them on hand because I'm putting out content for the vPub and these are reference bottles or something I need. These are bottles I love. These are bottles that have earned my love. It is not, absolutely not exhaustive. Loch Lomond is missing. Ardbeg is missing. Brookladdie is missing. Arran is missing. I could sit here for another 5 minutes rhyming off lots of things that are missing. I haven't even stepped outside of Scotland. And here we have a Permashelf top 10 list that has lots of attrition behind it, things that I had to leave out. But for the first time in the Permashelf, I am telling you, I've not tried to be mindful of what's available close to you. I've not tried to be mindful of inclusivity of different categories like blends and blended malts or whatever. I've come to you hand on heart and said, these are the bottles. Core range, available and recognizable and accessible, natural whiskies, fairly priced. This is the Permashelf. Permashelf is a strange concept for me, says Ben. Tried it, move on, loads more to discover. I know, I understand. It's not for everyone. I opened up tonight talking about that very concept, Ben. We are promiscuous and it's the exploration of flavour. But I'm also a nostalgia. Are we not all nostalgia driven at heart? You know, I think that it's nice to have the reassurance, especially when we have so many whiskies there, we're not really sure what we're in the mood for. I would like something that tastes a bit like this. And for me, it's reassuring to have something like this. And I hope that somebody else can get value out of it because they can take it as probably one of the most solid recommendations that exists, something that you're willing to go out and buy more than once, right? Daisy Vleeland is in. So good to see you, Daisy. Sam has seen Craigellachie 13 made my dad a fan of the distillery. He always has a bottling from the distillery in his collection. So Craigellachie has become his Permashelf. Just bought one to keep on my shelf at Australian dollars, 94. Ian, that's no bad money. $94 Australian. It's about, what is that, about 55 or something? 50? Everwind is saying, my heart is broken. There is no Buna 12 on your Permashelf. Such a classic of good and consistency. Chris, get in the comments underneath. Maybe not the live feed, but after the video, and put in your own list and include Buna 12 there because it is absolutely valid and loved by so many. Nova Scotia, Jimmy Legacy saying the best value whiskey in existence, $70. For comparison, Glendronach 12 is $130. You're talking about the Craigellachie 13 for $70. By the way, can we just say Glendronach 12 for $130? Nonsensical, stupid price. Perhaps there is a connection, not with Glenglassaugh shutting down and their new range of products, but if Glendronach are trying to charge 130 Canadian for that 12-year-old, that suggests that's £70. You're what? Jean Kelly's saying no quarrels on the Permashelf you've assembled, but an 11th would have to be Bino 12. There you go. Backing up Chris, everyone, Chris. Thanks, Jean. Good call. David is saying, looking back, it seemed almost all that was worth was from Isla. Looking at that shelf, we are reminded that many other producers are upping their game and so many Speysiders. Great. I'm surprised that 40% of my picks are Speysiders, but you can't argue with them. Speyburn, Benromach, Aultmore. What's my other Speysider? Remind me what it is. I don't want to have to look round. The last one I just opened, Craigellachie. It's time for the quiz at the end. It's time for me to get myself to bed. Funny that wood shop is completely not a consistent smell. Every species of wood smells different, says Frank Peathead. Frank is a woodworker and he's very aware and very sensitized to the different smells of different wood and things like that. It's a wee bit like when people say fruit or grassy, or if you have the capability to define your wood through exposure or experience or whatever, then I encourage you to do that. Chuck is saying, I get that credit, that cordite note from the Craigellachie 13 fairly strong. Cordite, wow. So a wee bit, kind of cordite tends to lean towards the kind of slightly, ever so slightly sulfury side of the spectrum, but maybe a wee bit of the kind of umami challenging. It is there. Well, interestingly, when I nosed it tonight, the reaction to it, especially on the back of the fresh Deanston, Chuck, right, was maybe something along the lines of what you describe as cordite. It's no surprise to a lot of folk, I hope, that I don't smell a lot of cordite. Okay, Sam is saying, definitely ordering a bottle of Speyburn 15 to see what I'm going to miss out on. Signed the petition, by the way. Sam, I'm not sure who or where you are right now, buddy, but let me make this pledge to you. Sam, you've bought that bottle of Speyburn 15. If you've paid retail for it, I hope that you have. If you open it and decide it's not for you and you don't like it, I'll buy the open bottle back off you at the full price that you paid for it. I used to promise that to everyone back in the day, but now it'd be financially ruinous for me to potentially do it now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. The Permashelf is a concept that I think a lot of people can understand or get on board with, even if it's like Ben Whiskey with Molly. It's not something that they have or do, but they can understand how it's got value to an audience or people coming into whiskey and trying whiskey. For me, it's an emotional response. I don't want to be without some of these things that I've grown to love. Hells is saying, always get barbecued pineapple in Craigellachie 13. Oh, I'm with you. So when I was talking about the berries and the cherries and the cooked fruits and things, and I swung back to orchard and melon and things, what you've done there, Helen, with the barbecued pineapple, the charred pineapple thing, and this is not a smoke thing. This is very, very different. It's like a charred pineapple thing, which is nuts because I don't eat charred pineapple. It's not I think I have. I think I've had pineapple from a barbecue. I can't remember, but it feels like I have. It's not a staple for me. But it doesn't take much imagination to place that idea. Charred pineapple. There you go. Please chime in. You've got so much more value and more to say than I have. Sachin is saying, whenever I've ever bought a bottle after you've mentioned it, it has always been a banger. Sachin, you and I can be friends, but it doesn't need to be the case. If I do recommend something that's not good, please chime in and say the same thing. And Chuck is saying charred pineapple and jalapenos. I'll take that. Jalapenos, maybe on the nose. It's not going to be there on the palate though, buddy. For me, love to be in safe spaces where we can discuss the nonsensical stuff that comes from sipping whiskey. Is wonderful. Quiz at the end. Don't know how to couch it tonight. I predict that there will be 10 out of 10s tonight. Quite comfortable, easy 10 out of 10s tonight. You might notice that there's been a theme to the vPub quiz at the end for 2025 so far, and that will continue tonight. If you're going to dip out now, there's been over 400 of us in tonight, but it always drops off at the end. Thank you for being here. Please nip along to the petition, either by clicking the link that you see in this live chat window tonight, or click onto today's Dramface article, which happened to be, incidentally. Tomorrow will be a brand new, fresh article, by the way. Tomorrow is going to be a Deluan from a brand new writer, a debut writer. But today's article is all about non-chill filtration against chill filtration and comparing two Speyburns, otherwise spec like for like, and talking about the concept around that, and sending a message back to the industry based on product development, decision making, who's in the room, all of that stuff. A petition about please don't dilute, please don't filter, please don't strip or take anything away from malt whiskey, and don't add anything from malt whiskey. It's that's the petition specifically to Inverhouse. Let's see, we've managed to get up to 130. Where were we? Let's have a wee refresh. Oh, we're knocking up we're only 9 away from our next goal of 200 signatures. But I ask you that petition link wherever you are, Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, whiskey groups, wherever you are, share that on your social media. Not because I want them to be engaged with Dramface or Aquavita or anything. The petition is about a very, very specific thing, and it's about preserving malt whiskey and what it wants to be. Profit and short-term performance and things be damned. Please share it wherever you are. Thank you. Anyway, let's get into the quiz at the end. I suspect this will be a wee bit of a challenge and quite easy for a lot of you. Interestingly, somebody said, I say that a lot, don't I? But it's the conversations that I have. I was at the Whiskey Club and somebody said, if I'm watching and I do the quiz at the end with the crowd, 10 out of 10s are quite easy. He said, what's really, really hard is when you shut the chat down and you just try it on your own and you can't follow anyone else. That's harder. That's much harder. It's up to you. You're only playing against yourself. But these things do play a dynamic in it, don't they? Of course they do. 10 questions, all multiple choice. They're very, very knowledgeable in the crowd. So if you're not sure and you lean on them, you can lean on them and you can get your scores up. But play blind. Select a pre-A, B, A, C, C, D, E, whatever it may be. There's no E's. There's no D's either. It's only A, B's or C's. But that's you playing against somebody who comes in and is just guessing. Your chimpanzee pal, if you like. Do that. Switch off the crowd. Play on your own. Lean on the crowd. It's all up to you. The idea of the quiz at the end is just to have a bit of fun and see if you don't learn anything, I'm getting it wrong. Good luck, everyone. 30th of January, my goodness, the first month of 2025 almost done. Question 1. Oh, sorry. I prepared this earlier. I suppose I'll show you it now since it's up on screen. I didn't need it. Here's the 2022 list, okay? Here's the 2024 list. And obviously you can see over my shoulder the updated 2025 list that I'll add somewhere. I'll do it in the chapters below. And just to show you how I changed it. Glendronach 12 was ditched. Sherry Bomb that went in there in its place was obvious. Thompson Brothers TBBSW, a blended scotch, but that's not going to be around forever. And it's a stretch to call it a core range product. The other two that I was able to ditch was the Glasshouse, which was a blended scotch. I put in place Glengarry 12. That's got artificial colouring in it. It's coloured. 48% ABV though, and unchill filtered. Still a fantastic product, loved by many, but it was easy for me to replace with other products tonight. Orchard House is a blended malt from Compass Box, which I believe is maybe under a wee bit of threat, but I replaced it with a Isla Kilkerran Sanic in 2024. I'm enjoying my Sanic, I really am. It's one of those distilleries that I will always have 1, 2, 3 or more bottles on the shelf, but I'm ambivalent as to whether it's the Sanic or not right now. Weird. It was easy for me to replace. Sorry for that distraction. We're on the quiz at the end. Question 1. Which of these is a trade name which has been used for Loch Lomond made malt whiskey? Should be a wee hyphen in there. Loch Lomond made malt whiskey. Trade name that we associate with Loch Lomond. A. Inchfad. B. Craigellachie. C. Glen Douglas. Which of those is a trade name that we associate with Loch Lomond? The questions at the start tend to be a wee bit easier, and towards the end, towards the 10th question. So I get you all excited that you've got a really good score, and then I'm horrible to you. And with banana skins and asshats throughout the quiz at the end, I strip it away from you. I'm not a nice man at times. But it needs to be that if you get a 10 out of 10, it's really genuinely fought for and deserved. Lots of you. Where's Roy saying A, at least? Lassie Otsman, good to see you. Lassie, Dave the Brave, A. George McLeod. George McLeod, that looks like a new name, and you're a barfly, George. Nice to have you in. If I have mentioned you before, sorry for forgetting you. It's nice to have you. Too Slow Rob is in. Fantastic to see you. Something tells me B might be correct as well, but not sure, says Frank Peathead. I love that not all of you are super, let's say, relaxed about the fact that not all of the question ones will be, all of them are correct. It's a good way to be, because you will be caught out. Sometimes they are not all correct. But tonight they are all correct. Craig Lodge, Glen Douglas, and of course, as you quite rightly spotted, being the knowledgeable crowd that you are, Inchfad are all made at Loch Lomond. Question 2. The Thompson brothers recently released a bottle of Bruichladdich, and they called it Rins, an independent bottling of Bruichladdich that they called Rins. That is a name that's been officially used in the past by Bruichladdich Distillery, but what other name might be used by them to describe Bruichladdich spirit? A. Port Askig can sometimes be used by Bruichladdich. B. Finlaggan can sometimes be used by Bruichladdich. Or C. Lochendal can sometimes be used by Bruichladdich. Mike is saying, yeah, it won't always be all of the above, but today it is. Hopefully I'm mindful enough, Mike, to put in a wee banana emoji to remind you that it might be a banana skin. Gabriel Welding is saying C, love this stuff. Must be C, says Graham Fraser. C, Lachlan McKenzie is tuning in and going with the flow tonight. Peter is saying, love the Rins, especially the Mountain Road. Frank the Biker. Absolutely, the Rins are referring to Isla, but the other thing is referring to, if the Rins are the Highland of Isla, Lochendal is definitely the lowland sea level because it is a sea loch. Lochendal is also been a Bruichladdich. At least a lot of private casks and things are called Lochendal. It appears here and there it's used by independent bottlers too. But if you see Lochendal, associate it with Bruichladdich. Question 3. What is the oldest age-stated official release so far from the Lowlands Farm Distillery, Loch Lee? What's the oldest age-stated we've seen with Loch Lee written on it? A, 5 years old. B, 6 years old. C, 7 years old. Terrific stuff. I make these things too easy for you, don't I? Really? Do you think? Or is it just the people that are active answering in the chat? The vocal folk seem to be knowledgeable. I'm wondering about the quieter folk in the background. Share your quiz scores in the comments below. Thank you for watching, whether you're interacting or not. Peter Box is here. Good to see you, Peter. Saying a B. I can tell you that you're absolutely right, Peter, as most of your compatriots and everyone else that was in. James Morgan is in. Good to see you. Master Chief Sea Chest is in again. Good to see you. I guess this isn't an all of the above. No, very specific. For question 3, we're past that now. 6 years old. Loch Lee last year in 2024 released an official 6-year-old. Question 4 in 2025. What is Diageo's smallest distillery by capacity? Not what they're actually making, by capacity, because it's quite opaque. We don't always know exactly how much they're making. But by capacity, what is Diageo's smallest distillery in 2025? Is it A, Oban on the west coast, B, Brora in the northeast, or C, Royal Loch Nagar in the east? East. It's a Highland distillery, Eastern Highlands, yeah. Diageo's smallest distillery by capacity. Oban, Brora, Royal Loch Nagar. Chuck is saying, I'm a guess C. Graham Fraser saying, good question. One Glassman is saying A by space. PF Bog, is that your name? But I thought it is Balcones in Texas. Well, I suppose that is a very, very good thing to say. I don't know what the capacity of Balcones in Texas is, but it's definitely Diageo owned. And I suppose I should have contextualized that by talking about Scotch malt distilleries. Yes. Let me say this, PF Bog. Let me say, of these three options I give you here, A, B, or C, which of these three are Diageo's smallest by capacity? Most of you have got it absolutely right, despite the fact that Brora is the newest. It is actually bigger than Royal Lochnagar and Oban. Oban is absolutely restricted by the size that it is, and its maximum capacity is the maximum capacity with very little, minimal chances for increasing that capacity, only by efficiencies, I would say, because of physical space. It's hemmed in by the town itself. Royal Lochnagar at 500,000 litres, 500,000 litres, is still Diageo's smallest distillery. So if you said C, like Chuck, you get a point. Question 5 is a picture, always a picture question. We're looking at a very barren landscape here. A bright blue loch, lots of peat bogs, lots of soft ground around it. I'm going to ask you which distillery is closest to this spot. I'm not telling you the name of the loch, but you might know. Not a lot of trees here, so maybe an exposed spot. A, Kilhoman is near this spot. B, Lag Distillery is near this spot. Or C, Tobermory is near this spot. Chuck thinks this looks like Virginia. I have to say that there's a bit of dynamism to the horizon there with there's some hills, some sweeping hills. We are in Scotland, but it's not the big dynamic landscape that we would normally associate with the rugged landscape of Scotland. But it's one of those three distilleries are nearby this particular kind of pale blue loch. Daniel Key is in. Daniel, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're keeping well. Joe Smith is here. Still here, Joe. Good to see you, buddy. Steve Atkis, Gene Kelly, Big Ed, Graham Fraser, Mikey Hay, Peter Box. Oh, it's just so good, all my pals. Good pals, good people, good whiskey folk, like whiskey brings. Most of you getting this absolutely spot on. You know that we're looking at Loch Gorm, which is apparently Gaelic, Scots Gaelic for the blue loch or the green loch or the teal-coloured loch or somewhere around that order. This is obviously Loch Gorm, which of course is there for Kilhoman Distillery on Islay. We went to the beach, Aquavitae, not the loch, says Jimmy Legg. Well, I guarantee you couldn't have missed the loch because the single track road up to the distillery, the loch is on your right-hand side. And as you come back from the distillery, surprise, surprise, it's on the left. Question 6. Which of these is a genuine name for one of the infamous black whiskies? Let's talk about these black whiskies. These are whiskies that have been taken and abused to such an extent that they have been rendered black. Not black by cask maturation, not black by any other means other than this horrible, horrible liquid that is caramel colorant. Which of these is a genuine name? Patrons, I know that you got on the lock-in that we had on Sunday night, you got a very similar question to this. It's a departure from that. So, it's not a shoe-in for patrons, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. A genuine name for one of the black whiskies is A, Loch Dew, B, Bendu, C, Dallas Dew. Frank is telling Jimmy to shut up because he drove past it. But Jimmy would have been caught up in the moment and chatting and looking at it. He probably didn't realise that the body of water off to the right on the way to the distillery was Loch Gorm and the inspiration for the annual sherry cask release from Kilhoman. Lachlan is saying C is a museum. Okay, the name for one of the famous black whiskies is, and there's a banana skin in here because I'm being a wee bit naughty. Dallasdew is luckily and absolutely spot on, a museum, but it's been purchased by a CEO who owned Murray McDavid, and they're bringing Dallasdew back to life. Bendu is a way to say one of the black whiskies, but it's not. It's Ben Duff, actually. But Bendu is okay. So if you want to say Bendu, yeah, but it's not a genuine name because I've spelt it completely wrongly. What I'm looking for is Loch Du here. If you've said B for Bendu, you can take the point if you like. I'll show you the actual spelling. On the left, we've got Cuduf, which uses a weird spelling for Gaelic, which is D-H-U-B for Duff. My surname is Duff, which is a weirder spelling still, D-U-F-F. Loch Du, so that's literally black water, so Loch Du. There's no BH or B or anything on the end of that, so it's Du. Ben Duff on the right is the Black Mountain, so but it's B-E-I-N-N. I don't know anything about Gaelic, but and then finally we've got Cuduf on the far right here, but again bizarre spelling. The original is Loch Du, which was originally made at Mannockmore. They called it the black whiskey, but it wasn't black for any other reason than it was coloured within an inch of its life. Please don't buy it. It's putrid. It's not good whiskey. If you answered A, give yourself a point. If you answered B, it's up to you whether you take the point or not. If you think I'm a pedant, take the point. Question 7, J&A Mitchell launched Campbeltown Loch blended malt back in 2021. Wow, it's coming up in 4 years that we've had Campbeltown Loch as a blended malt. But before that, what was the Campbeltown Loch name used for by J&A Mitchell? What did they use it for before that 2021 launch of their blended malt that swept the world? A, they used it for a 40% ABV blended Scotch whisky. B, they used it as a trade name for Springbank Spirit. Or C, they used it as a J&A Mitchell blend where they sourced Glen Scotia malt and Invergordon grain. What was Campbeltown Loch before it was the blended malt that we know and love today? By the way, for the record, if there was a blended malt in my Permashelf lineup, I think I would be hard pushed to see past Campbeltown Loch, Thompson Brothers SRV 5, 8-year-old, or, I mean, there are one or two others, but the value, the quality, so good. You guys are great. Part of a curse, go swim in Campbeltown Loch, says Frank Peathead. You're all absolutely spot on, such knowledgeable folk. Campbeltown Loch has always been a product brand name for J&A Mitchell, but previous to the blended malt of 46%, it was actually, believe it or not, often used as a 40% blended Scotch. There were Campbeltown Loch expressions at higher ABV as well. They had some age-dated 21-year-old, for example, at 46% and things, but it was regularly seen as a 40% ABV blended Scotch whisky. Okay, 3 questions left, and it's getting pretty tricky, but I can see a lot of you are still sitting pretty on 7 out of 7. The vast majority has slipped up somewhere on a wee banana skin on 6, but there's a lot of you in with a chance. Question 8, which of these stag brands first included a 12-pointed or 12-tined, tines are the points on a deer's antlers apparently, Royal Stag on their brand in a 2015 rebranding? So this company rebranded back a decade ago in 2015. It was part of the rebrand. They introduced a 12-pointed stag on their logo. Was that A, Loch Lomond, B, Dalmore, C, Glenfiddich? Which of those 3 brands, through a 2015 rebranding, introduced a new 12-pointed or 12-tined Royal Stag as part of their rebrand? I wonder how many of you watch the vPub on your laptop or your desktop with a keyboard or something, because it's really, really difficult to interact as much as you do on a phone or tablet, right? 7 out of 7's Cal, Hellswood, Gabriel Wilding, George McLeod. 7 out of 7 for Graham Fraser as well. Of course, Mikey Hay on a 7. Usually, if Graham Fraser or Ben Whiskey with Molly, if they're not on full marks, I've probably got things wrong rather than them. One Glassman Warner is saying this is the only way that Dalmore gets a quiz attention. Well, no, they would get attention if they put out natural whiskey as well, if they didn't colour it within an inch of its life, if they didn't strip it and chill filter it. Justin Mann is saying it's easier for the computer for me, especially to tag people. Spot on, Justin. I can tell you that the rebrand in 2015, this is how new a renaissance this is, right? This distillery was putting out a really ugly labelling with a wee lion rampant on the front. And it's as recently as 2015 that Loch Lomond adopted their stag logo and completely changed everything, not just by a rebranding. The rebranding is actually incidental. But from 2015 till 2025, a decade of building at Loch Lomond has brought them from bottom shelf muck to top drawer fantastic. The only reason that Loch Lomond didn't get a Permashelf mention tonight, it has in the past, is the fact that some of their core range that I've been relying on, Steam and Fire an exception, the single grains that are exceptions, they're natural whiskies. But the 12-inch Moan-inch Murren and the original still rely on caramel colorant. It's 2025, come on. Harold Curry worked for Chivas Brothers. After he came back from the army, he worked for Chivas Brothers and he chaired also a Scottish football team. As part of that chairmanship, he hired Alex Ferguson, who's the famous Alex Ferguson, became Sir Alex Ferguson, of course, Aberdeen, Manchester United, as head coach. He was the oldest surviving member of his regiment when he died in 2016. Harold Curry, what a guy. But which distillery did he found during his retirement? Harold Curry. A. Harold Curry went on to found Torravik in his retirement. B. Harold Curry went on to found Arran after his retirement. Or C. Harold Curry went on to found Annandale after his retirement. Has anyone spotted the theme tonight? Is there anyone cottoned on? Is the theme a wee bit too subtle? I don't think so. Infinite Loch, wonderful, wonderful PT hit. You guys are killing it. Great stuff. Wonderful to have you here participating. Vasil is in at the end. Good to see you. Bud Jenkins still here. Bruno Martins is here. Steve Atkis. Glenn FC. Klaus answering B. Good to see you, Glenn. Daniel Key is saying B. PF Bog is on C. Overland Drams, Chuck is admitting that he doesn't have an idea, which is okay, Chuck. Lachlan is saying B. Daisy is saying B. Joe Smith is saying B. Ben Whiskey with Molly is saying B. Okay. I can tell you that Graham Fraser is saying I posted this in Aquavitae Barflies Facebook group recently. Did you, buddy? Did you? I read it in the Malt Whiskey Yearbook this very day. Great minds and all that. I love what you share in the Barflies group, Graham. You're a font of knowledge and you're always up to the minute as well. This is Arran, which of course is Lochranza. Harold Curry went on to, after working at Chivas Pernod Ricard, after being awarded for being the oldest survived member of his regiment, after chairing St Mirren Football Club. He was a chairperson and he appointed Alex Ferguson as head coach. Amazing life. Some people just affect lives, don't they? And other people's, like me, are just a wee bit sedentary. Mikey is saying, come on, Aquavitae, nice easy ASAP, but please, for my first ever 10. Mikey, that would be amazing. I'm here with you, buddy. But I have to say, asshats are not designed to be and never should be easy. The final question at the end is always an asshat. That means it's deliberately belligerent, obtuse, awkward, horrible, cruel. You need to know the answer to two different things to get the answer to this. And tonight's asshat is: how many Scotch malt distilleries have Loch in their name? That was the theme tonight. So the last few questions, I don't know if it was as far back as 7, but 8 and 9, you would have been able to answer much easier if you'd worked out the theme and answered along the theme of Loch. All of the questions were on the theme of Loch tonight. So now I'm asking you for the asshat at the end. How many Scotch malt distilleries, active Scotch malt distilleries, active specifically, have Loch in their name? About the same number as A, the number of Scotch malt distilleries owned by William Grants. B, the number of the age statement on Glendronach's The Heelin, now discontinued. Or C, Scotch malt micro distilleries as listed in this year's 2025 Malt Whisky Yearbook. One day I'm going to double tap that mute button and accidentally mute and immediately unmute it. It's happened in the past. And you guys will all get to experience one of those big epic whiskey burps that I have to let out now and again on the vPub. I think my family hear it, but you guys are thankfully not subject to it. Okay, how many active Scotch malt distilleries have Loch in the name? About the same number as Scotch malt distilleries owned by Willie Grants. About the same as the number of years age dated on a bottle of Glendronach's Heelin. Or C, micro distilleries listed in the 2025 Malt Whisky Yearbook. You're all over the place, exactly as a malt whiskey, exactly as an asshat question at the end should be. Lassie Hort Oatsman is saying C, Justin One is saying B, whereas Papa Q is saying A, PF Bog is saying A, Cal Taylor is saying B, Joe Smith is saying C, George McLeod is saying C. Okay, all over the place for this one. I can tell you the answers first, see if that helps you. Scotch malt distilleries owned by Willie Grant, 4. Kinninvie, Balvenie, Glenfiddich and Ailsa Bay. The age statement on a Glendronach's Heelin was an 8-year-old. And the Scotch micro distilleries listed in the 2025 Malt Whisky Yearbook is 8 micro distilleries. Now, have I been kind to you? Is it 8 or is it 4 is the answer? Well, the number of Loch distilleries is Loch Lomond, Loch Lee, Royal Loch Nagar, and Loch Ranza. It is 4. So if you answered A, there are only 4 active. So Glenlochy is closed, Lochside is gone. There are other Loch distilleries, but only 4 malt distilleries. Certainly nothing close to 8 for the age stated on a Glendronach's Heelin, or the amount of micro distilleries listed in the Malt Whisky Yearbook. So how many 10 out of 10s do we have? Is that a horrible thing for a lot of you? No, Hellswood, the first to celebrate tonight. Fantastic, Helen. 10 out of 10. Not your first. You're no stranger to a 10 out of 10. And it's great to see that you've managed it tonight. Superb. 9 out of 10 for Gabriel Welding. So close. Justin Wan, Lachlan McKenzie on 7s. Great scores. Bruno Martin's also on a 7 as well. Kyle Taylor beating that on an 8. Fantastic, Kyle. But Nicholas is almost there with a 9. Big Ed on an 8 as well. Jumps. I'm so sorry. So no, says Tom Elmer. Tom Elmer's in here tonight. So good to see you, buddy. Daniel Key on an 8. 8 out of 10 says Desi Leland, but got the asshat right. So that's a celebration in itself, Daisy, isn't it? Steve Atkiss and Bud Jenkins and Lassie Hort Osman all on a 7. Tough one, but great quiz. 7, says Ian Bruce. 9 out of 10 for Graham Fraser. Oh my goodness, a shock. Wheels have come off. Mikey Hayes on a 9 out of 10. So who did anyone else? Congrats to the 10 out of 10. There's only Helen. That cannot be true. I mean, amazing for Helen, but there's got to be another 10 out of 10. Where's Ben? What's Ben Whiskey with Molly doing? He's congratulating the 10s. So it suggests Ben didn't get a 10 tonight. 8 out of 10. There is 6 actually, Aquavitae. Oh, what have I missed, Ben? Because here you go. If it can be shown that I asked the question wrong, there's an error, it's just plain wrong, whatever it is, if there's something dubious about anything in a quiz at the end, It's a free point for everyone. What am I missing, Ben? Royal Loch is mentioned. Ballindalach. Double L. I wonder if that's how I missed it. Ballindalach. That's 5. So it's still much closer. About the same as 4. So it's still 5. Gene Kelly saying fantastic vPub way to end of January. Petehead has pointed out as well Ballindalach. I miss Ballindalach. I genuinely did. So I said Royal Loch Nagar, Loch Ranza, Loch Lomond, and Loch Lee. Ballindalach is 5. The other 2 options were 8, but it's still me making a mistake. So if the asshat at the end is all that's standing in the way of you getting an extra point or a 10 out of 10, take it. Take it to the bank, run with it, and enjoy it. Ballindalach. You guys are always much more knowledgeable than I am. There is no way I can compete with the pool of knowledge that's out there, and I never ever intend to. In fact, let me make it possible for somehow, in everything I do, whether it's Dramface, whether it's the Oswas, whether it's the silly wee projects that we have on the vPub, however, to make it clear how knowledgeable you are and how important that is to everyone that comes into whiskey, everyone that is already in whiskey, everyone that might come to whiskey in the future. Especially it should be important to the folk out there that are making and guiding and designing and developing whiskey. You're knowledgeable, not just knowledgeable through text, through study, but knowledgeable through emotional, visceral, organoleptic experience. Daniel Key is saying, just count Ladyburn and we got 5 under William Grant. No, come on. Hillsware is saying, fab vPub and nice to see some new bottles on the Permashelf. Thank you, Helen. And with that, I call it a day. Hit the sack. Thanks for yet again a very enjoyable vPub, says Frank. And to all of you, till the next time, Slancheva. Thank you, buddy. Thank you always for your support, for your kind words and everything. No need for humility. Your spirit guide, says Gene Kelly. Come on, I pull humility off quite well from time to time. Maybe now and again. Come on. Bruno Martins is saying, great barflies. Loved your new set of Permashelf, Roy. I totally subscribe it. See you all on Thursday. Best as always from Nebraska, Roy, says Papa Q. Thank you very, very much to you in Nebraska. Wonderful to have you. Bruce Bernard is saying Mortlach. No, it's Lack. It's Lack. It doesn't quite count, but it's close there. Thank you for trying, buddy. Well done. So, Jimmy, right at the end is bought everyone an Aquaviti membership, or 10 people an Aquaviti membership. Jimmy, that's very super generous of you. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, Jimmy Legg. And PF Bog has just joined the Aquaviti Barflies. Thank you both for your support. PF Bog keeping it absolutely ad-free, and Jimmy Legg keeping everybody else and memberships as well. He's also a long-term patron. Member for 40 months, celebration by Whiskey with Molly Ben, 40 months of asshat pain. No, come on, 40 months of lots and lots and lots of 10 out of 10s as well. Hoyt is saying fun and informative vPub. Thank you, Hoyt. Lachlan is saying thanks, Echo VT, and have a good evening, folks. Graham Fraser saying good night, folks and barflies. Peter Lee saying only caught the tail end of the vPub, but enjoyed it. Thank you, Peter. It's wonderful to have you in. I'm not going to quite hit 3 hours tonight. Maybe next week. Joined late tonight, says Justin Wan. We'll catch the first part on replay. Good night, everyone. Thank you for being in, Justin. Thank you, buddy. He's over in Hong Kong, Justin. Dave the Brave is saying thank you for a great night. And Theme, thank you, Dave. Nice to have you in. Christoph is saying time for bed. Good night, all, and thanks to another great vPub. Justin Wan is celebrating being a member for 14 months and saying, a milestone chat available. Fantastic. I'm going to raise this wee glass of whatever it is. What is this one? It's very obvious what it is. It's amazing how I didn't. I ended up with an Isla, one smoky, one super smoky, one thing leaning towards sherry, nothing from the lowlands, four from Speyside. That beats my 3 from the Highlands and 2 from Campbelltown. That was not part of my decision-making process tonight. It was just incidental, and it was what it was. Here is the 2025 Permashelf. February comes around in a week from now. I look forward to welcoming you all back then. Can't wait. In the meantime, I'll raise a wee glass and do what I always do and remind you that you're all very dearly loved. And until seeing you again next week, Sláinte mhath. Cheers, barflies. Thank you.